All right, it says we're live. What's up, everybody? I know we're super late. It's 9:15.
That's because we talk too much.
Yeah, I've been here for like 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are at the world headquarters of R&R Motorsports with Mr. Dan Rigoni. This is the first live show that's like in a shop. I did that live from Michael Waltrip Brewing.
Yep.
But this is the first time in like 2 or 3 years that I've done this.
Yep.
So
all because my order was late and you wanted to deliver.
I know, literally. So, all right, we do have to talk about that real quick. Just if you're watching this, okay, head over to the front drive shop, which you'll see over there in the corner above Dan's head, sort of, the FWD.shop. I got some new stuff out. I literally got a whole bunch of stuff added. I'm going to walk through it really fast. It's going to take like 1, maybe 2 minutes, okay? Lightsevers are up if you guys want your lightsever. You get a free lightsever mount if you order it through me, okay? Same list price as everybody else because we have this thing called map pricing. So everybody sells it for $140. I'm going to give you a mount for free. I'm going to ship it to you for free. Okay. Thing is, if you get a mount from anybody else, it's going to be black. Okay. I know because I made them. If you order them from me, we have things like orange or I call this one, I think, neon blue or electric blue. We have blue, black. I mean, I have 28 colors right now. Okay. I got my hot pink. I've got the green. This is my robin's egg blue, right? Like I only brought a few colors here, 28 different colors. These are the new flatback style with a bolt hole in them. You can kind of see, sort of. Okay, I know the lighting's not in here great. We got one light. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't bring my fancy light. I could have, but I didn't. Right? But
it'll work. They don't need to see us.
Yes, there you can see the holes in the center. The back of it's flat. These things snap in. They fit 2 large head rivets or 1 1/4-inch bolt with a washer attached. Okay, same price. Actually, these are $1 less because we do include stainless steel made in America hose clamps for the new updated design that these come with because these are rated for the new impact lightsever when it comes out. Hence the design. This one has a zip tie and a clamp. I ship it to you with 2 clamps, hence the extra $1, which we were just talking prices. For the extra $1, you want the 2 clamps because I pay more than that per clamp. Okay. But zip ties still work with them, but lightsever. And then these are actually Dan's. That's why they're in the bag. Because you can come to R&R Motorsports, and if you look right here, here's some of my stuff already up here. But Dan is going to be stocking some of this stuff. How much of this are you taking to Berlin?
I'll take all the lightsever mount. I'll take everything you brought,
all right.
Actually.
So, which I assume the purple and blue was for you. Maybe. Okay. Dan will still sell you these too, but Dan's got the black lightsever mount. I forgot his clamps. Okay, so you'll have to let me know. But he's got these other colors down there. Go check him out at Berlin. Right. The other thing that we got going that I added to the website, we got our simple dome lights. So these don't have a light switch in them. Okay, these little guys compared to the big guys, which do have a light switch. This is the new rivet style, so it's flat on the back. 2 rivets. We're going to send you the rivets. These do come with butt connectors and eyelets. You get 3 heat shrink butt connectors, a 1/4-inch and a 3/8 eyelet included in every one. These don't have as many colors because the translucent ones, they don't look so good with the stuff that's inside of it. So the translucent colors are not available in these, but there's still, God, I think there's like 18 colors that you can get these in. Okay. We got them up on the website. If you have a radio, I'd probably make a mount for it. We got the Receiver Pro. We got the RE Switch, the old Nitro B, the old Fusion Plus, the new Element, the new Nitro B. This is also the lap receiver. 28 colors, bolt or rivet. Those are all on the website. Okay. Also, bump stops. We have Honda and regular for the 22mm shaft or the Honda size. Soft, medium, hard, 2-inch, 1-inch, 1.5 inch. Also on the website. Then these are still kind of neat. I like these.
Yeah.
I like this idea. I was told you dirt guys were breaking my other scuff plates, so I made these indestructible ones. All right. These bad boys are flexible. Of course, I grab a light colored or dark color. These bad boys are flexible. Okay. I mean, tear that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, these things are. Yeah, you can't.
You'll never.
I call them indestructible. If you screw one up, I want to know how. Okay. Like truly. So these are the new yellows. I won't lie to you. I don't like this yellow. This is like a butter. We call it like a golden, like a wheat.
I just call it ugly.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't like this yellow. I've ordered more and different to try to find a bright This is the translucent yellow or like fluorescent yellow. I like this a lot better. But we got yellow, fluorescent yellow. We got gray. We got white, magenta, purple, because there is a difference. Might not come across on camera. Okay. It kind of does. But like that's magenta, that's purple, right?
Big difference.
And then we got blue. Which I do like that blue too. That blue actually is really, really close to
looks like
the other blue. Nose. Like it actually is pretty close. Okay. And then we got the transparent blue. We got hot pink, which even that, like I like that pink. That's fluorescent, by the way. Hit that bad boy with a UV light. She glows. Red. Orange. This orange is not the same as our other orange. It's not as bright. They don't make it quite as bright, but that's still orange.
So the thing about these translucent ones, though, depends on what color you put them on.
Exactly. Color can change on the backside of them.
Color can change on the backside. You can make all kinds of colors happen.
Yes, exactly. Then fluorescent green. These also, you get 5 of them, and we include the rivets to go with them. Okay. They use the small head rivets, but I give you all the rivets you need for them.
I think that's the only way you're going to damage one of those. Pull a rivet through the side in an impact.
Even then, you still got 3 more holes.
Yeah, I know.
Honestly, you could probably drill another hole next to them and do it. So, yeah, these are going to go on my car. The other thing is, so say you got a curved, like you got a curve on your hood.
Yep.
Whoop. So, yeah, these are made to fit where the chrome ones, like your big chrome. You got them hanging on the wall?
Yep, there's some up there.
All right, so them chrome ones way up there on the center of the wall. These are a direct fit for those. You can put these, brother, chrome underneath that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm going to try it out. So, all right, that's my spiel. Head over to the Front Drive shop, order you some stuff. So, now, we brought you some stuff. Dan made an order, dealer order. Dan's going to deal some stuff with us. Yep. So, if you guys want something, you head over here to Paw, just off 43.
Yep.
Okay, 43. All right. If he doesn't have it here in stock, let him know. He'll order it. I'll ship it to you. Okay. And then the more stuff you want, the more stuff he's got to buy, and he'll stock it. Right. There you go.
Yep.
Cool.
How it works.
All right. Part of the reason it took 3 hours is because we were hanging out talking. Because you have here on site, because you just don't do normal auto repair.
We do.
Okay. So if somebody close, hey, you need your tow rig worked on, Dan will hook you up. But it's R&R Motorsports.
Yes.
Like, it's the motorsports stuff. So just got the dyno jet put in the ground not too long ago, right? Christmas. So not even 6 months on it yet.
Yep.
Okay. So dyno jet in the ground. You can do tuning. What systems do you tune? HP tuners, because that's most of the GM stuff.
Yeah. Do pretty much any of the aftermarket standalone
Gotcha.
stuff.
Well versed in Mega Squirt.
Yeah, I run Mega Squirt on my own stuff.
Gotcha.
So that's my
bread and butter.
My bread and butter.
Okay.
I love the Mega Squirt.
You ever mess with the ECU Master?
I did, but it was a turbocharged V8, so
gotcha.
A little bit different.
I can tell you that every time Tyler plugs into mine, he's like, yeah, he hates it. So I don't blame him. I hate it too, but I'm working on somebody else to, sponsor me one. Oh, there went my pop. That's cool. It's a little foamy. The other neat thing Dan was showing me, we got the chassis dyno, but you got an engine dyno here on the grounds too.
Yep.
So right now equipped with that to do the 60-degree V6s.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the bell housing I have on it now.
Yeah. So if you want something other than that on the engine dyno, it takes some custom work. So we're working on it because I'm going to try. Dan and I have been talking for a little while, but we're going to get real serious about it when I've got the time and money to put a motor together. I'm going to bring it over here. I'm going to try to do a slew of testing. So I want to do cam testing, header testing, intake testing. So we're going to have to adapt it to a Neon at some point.
Engine dyno is 100% the place to do it.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of it is like with the cam timing and stuff, it's so easy to take the front off and, I don't have to spin the alternator. I don't have to spin, I don't even have to put the crank pulley back on it and that. So, it's so much easier to swap all that kind of stuff. So we're going to get there to that point. It might be a minute. Okay. Your boy needs to sell more race mounts before we can worry about building a monster. Okay. Now that I'm a car owner, and I got to do this thing on my own, we gotta build it. So we're getting there. We're going to do some fun stuff. But that's really the fun stuff for you is the motorsport stuff. Now, are you building cars for people too, or just kind of working on them?
I do a little bit of everything. We haven't built any new cars for anybody this year other than my own, which isn't done.
We also spent some time looking at that.
Yeah. Done some setup work on a few cars this year. Did a few throttle by wire to cable throttle body adapters and adaptations and standalone harness stuff on Ecotechs and things along those lines. Done a fair amount of Crown Vics.
Yeah.
I've had.
That's a little surprising for me, just because they ain't really that big up here yet.
I know it, but
is anybody in Michigan running them regularly? I know Kazoo's running 1 or 2 shows, but is anybody running the Vics regularly?
I think M40 and Hartford run them.
Are they
every week?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I've done
can't
more than a handful of them so far. They, that's so. Like I said, it's just kind of an array of stuff.
Yeah.
Not doing anything.
Yeah. We'd call you a GM specialist, but you're capable of doing everything else too.
I am, but really my heart and soul and the stuff that we like to build is 60-degree V6 stuff, and which
I mean, as long as
nobody races anymore.
Yeah, as long as I've known you, that's you've had a V6 and everything.
Yeah.
Because 2014 is the first time we raced together.
Yeah.
And I still this day, you walked me harder in that restart than I've ever had anybody else ever do. Of course, I got you going into corner. That was your first year in a front-wheel drive, though, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And that's really the struggle that I have with the V6 is just making it turn through the center.
Yeah.
And
well, that too, though, that was your first year. Yeah. And it was just a V6, because even then I was on a 10.5 motor and I was running second, I'd shift into third, right? Yep. So that was a big deal for me, is I just had the gear ratio over most people. Right. But 2014, we were, I went 15-2 at World Series that year, and it was mind-numbingly fast. That was insane, right?
Yep.
Well, actually, fun fact though, 2014, I went 14.62 at Call of the Wild, which is that record still stands. And I went 14.95 at Super Shoe, and it took a while for that record to fall. I think Biddle finally got it in 2019, so it took 5-6 years for that to fall.
Yeah.
So I was a little quick, but being your first year, that V6 it just pulled, it just had the torque, and on a restart.
Yeah. And 2014 and 2015 both, we were running 100% stock engines.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even have cams in them then or nothing.
Yeah.
They were 100% stock.
Plus the 850s.
They just made torque. Plus the 850s. And they just made a bunch of torque because they had stock cams in them. So they would go on a restart, but
about the flag stand, I could start pulling.
Yeah, it was all done after the flag stand.
And Jason says racing is definitely more fun when it's somebody else's dime. Yes, it is. I don't know. I had a lot of fun on my own dime back in the day. I was fast for cheaper back then.
I've never raced on somebody else's dime, so I don't really know.
It's fun.
Well,
it's fun.
I guess I shouldn't say that. I did when I used to race snowmobiles. I raced snowmobiles everywhere for about 10, 12 years. That was all on somebody else's dime. But
see, there you go. Just not stock cars,
Yep.
But yeah, Amanda and Chucky. He's not underdog anymore. Charles Anderson Jr. there switched his car, so he went from underdog to Chucky this year.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but they both said M40s running the Fords. So yeah, because M40, I think, Amanda, they were letting you guys run the Rangers with them for a minute too. Yeah,
they're the Crown Vics are it's kind of a cool class. I'm really surprised it didn't take off more than it did. It might still, but I think the biggest biggest issue with it is it's designed to be a stock class, and to be able to tech that they are actually stock is just going to be difficult.
So I've had this discussion with a few people. I think it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is, because there is no entry level V8 class.
Nope.
Owasso has pure stocks, but even them, they're built from the frame up, right? There's no entry level rear wheel drive class, and people make that argue with me all the time with the front race. I can build a straight stock for what you have, and I can't.
Yeah.
I can't build one ground up. You know what I don't have is a single 350 part. I don't have a single small block Chevy part. I don't have a single Monte Carlo chassis part, right? For me to go out and win, I can't do that. But the Crown Vics, I love that idea. The issue is that everyone's touting them. You can go buy a car for $1,000, $1,500, another $1,000 you can be racing, and that sounds great. I've been watching because Ohio and Indiana, Anderson, Speedrome area, Shady Bowl, stuff like that. Yeah, you can buy the cars for $1,000, $1,500 for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And then everybody that can afford to buy 2, 3, 4 cars, all of a sudden, that circle of $1,500 cars gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Suddenly, you've got $4,000 cars and $5,000 cars. And I have to run this model these years, or I'm out to lunch.
Right.
So those become more expensive. Yep. And I've seen guys sell them for $9,000, $10,000 now.
And the problem is, police departments aren't using them anymore.
Yeah.
So
they're not made. They're not made anymore.
They're gone.
Yeah. And they're old enough. They're what? 10, 11, 2010, 2011s?
Yeah. 2011, I think, is the newest one I've had in here.
Okay. Well, junkyards are scrapping them.
Yeah.
They're not keeping them.
They're going to crush them.
Yeah.
They're gone.
So, yeah. But yeah, it's one where, and again, I love the idea of the class, but everybody touted it as a front-wheel drive killer because they're cheap, they're affordable, the rear-wheel drive. Everybody's going to want to watch them.
It was for a minute.
It was. And now they're expensive to buy, expensive to build. And now guys have figured them out a little bit. You got to have the right gear ratio, the right tranny, the right motor, the right gear, the right suspension.
Yep.
If you don't have anything else, and now, well, they're not taking anything. Who's to say I don't put some heads on it or some cams in it or, these or that or, yeah. And so I love the idea of it. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched them race yet. I haven't been anywhere. I watched them practice. We went to Salem. There was some guys practice them. Yep. They looked fun. They look slow, which they're on DOTs and they're, a factory, 150, 200, 250 wheel horsepower. They're not going to be that fast.
No.
But it's just, Jason says it here. In my opinion, Crown Vics will be just like street stocks front wheel drive. They'll be stock for a while and then they'll get turned into a full-blown race car. Racers are our own worst enemy. Oh yeah, I seen one of the tracks down south was already guys were lobbying to be allowed to run headers and guys were lobbying to be allowed to run bodies on them and all this stuff. Well, you know how expensive it is to buy a front bumper? Well, if we can run bumper covers and fenders, let's build a street stock. So but I've always been a proponent of having outlaw and stock front wheel drive. If you don't want to run ABC, stock, but you got to tech them.
Yep.
So
it's the same thing. It's just like anything else. If you're running any kind of stock class, it takes tech to do it.
Yeah.
But back to the price of the Crown Vics. So one of the issues that the Crown Vics have are the intake manifolds.
Yep.
They start leaking water.
Yep.
And Dorman made a great replacement to fix them that doesn't cost a lot of money. Well, I'll tell you right now, probably here first, that Dorman manifold makes a lot less horsepower than a stock one.
There you go.
So now a stock manifold that's good becomes worth a lot more money.
Yep.
So that's exactly what's going to happen with that whole class. Is it's going to be harder and harder to get the stuff.
It's going to be fun. It's when they have the Crown Vic class and the Outlaw Crown Vic class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trent says they're already tuning the computers. Racers will do whatever doing it. Dude, Trenton's building a Subaru, front wheel drive Subaru. And he's running Outlaw with it, and that thing is nasty. Like it's Trent, dude. Because I've been following him, and I mean it's no secret.
Yeah.
I'm not here to talk about his stuff. He can talk about, but like I'd tell you about it afterwards. Like I can't wait to see what that car does on the dyno and then on the track. But it's a Subaru. What year is it, Trent? And it's like an Impreza. But it's no rear drive shaft, so it's all front wheel drive, so it'll fit all the front wheel drive rules. But yeah, it's nasty. Like it's
and also just think about the geometry, the lower center of gravity of the engine. I mean,
well, the engine is 100% in front of the axle too.
100% in front of the axle, and it's low.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen some pictures of how it's built. Like it's going to be interesting to see. So I'm waiting for him to get that thing out. So goes to the tuner next Friday. Dude, Trent, you got to send me a message with what it does. In the group, I had Trenton, and then Trent, which was also a Trenton. So I had Trenton, and Trent all at one time in the group. 01 Impreza RS is what he's got. So
that'd be interesting.
Oh, dude, it's I'll send you some pictures that he's posted publicly. So I'm not sharing anything I can't. But yeah, it's pretty gnarly. Bubba says he's got a 4.6 with 210 horsepower. And then Kyle Ramsey says, "Hey, Dan."
Hey, so what's up, Kyle?
Yeah. Kyle, you're going to be at Berlin, aren't you? So, it'll be posted, LOL. Hoping South Bend's last race is my first race. Not bad. Yeah, I wanted to try to get to South Bend, but I don't know if I need to get a trans in dock before I can go racing. It's the closest I've got is the car that blew the gears out of the side of the transmission at Rockford.
It's a lot closer than what I got.
Yeah, but I have a lot to do before I can work on mine. Mine's technically in the pole barn, but I don't.
That's why it's not in my shop.
Well, I don't have any electricity in my pole barn unless I pull the extension cord out there. And So Kyle says, "Yep, just finished up the wrap touch-up tonight." Nice. So, how long you been in the racing game, Dan? Because I didn't realize you posted a picture the other day of you running limited late or something like that. So how long you been involved in the racing game?
So I guess 93, 94 was when I started.
All right.
Rear wheel drive stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
Enduros mostly.
Okay.
I ran rear wheel drive V8 Enduros for years, and then when the snowmobile racing thing got real big, all the car stuff took back burner.
Gotcha.
I still had it, kept the car around, and I would race it here and there. And then, like we talked about, I ended up moving up to Gaylord at one point. Yep. Took the car with me, raced at Onaway.
Okay.
Actually won a championship at Onaway.
My brother-in-law is trying to convince me to take Ben up there for the Enduro the weekend of July 6th.
It's a fun track. It really is. Yeah. It's like a mini Springport.
Okay.
Is kind of what it drives like. It's what it feels like. But it is a ton of brake and a ton. I mean,
sounds like my kind of place.
If you're going faster than 35 in the center of the corner, I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really slow in the center.
Yeah.
Because it's super tight.
Yeah.
But it's a fun track to drive on. And back in the day, in 2000 or so when I raced there, dude, it wasn't as nice as it is now.
Yeah.
It's much nicer now.
They've really put some work in it the last little bit, because I know they got like the cabins and that up there, I think that they're doing and
and they put in that drag strip and a bunch of stuff. But
they got the big rig drag racing stuff.
Pretty cool.
Only one in the United States. Everything else is over in Canada that they're doing it. So,
but you back when I raced up there, you used to be able to, the inside of the corner was a drop off.
Okay.
You could actually hook the left front tire off in the grass and hook it on the inside. And, you'd ruin a wheel about, every 4 or 5 nights.
You could do that at Spartan and Springport for a while too. You still kind of can at Springport sometimes. Yeah. Spartan decided they got so tired of it, they put a 10-inch curb there. Yeah. Now you really don't want to drop a wheel.
Onaway has some pretty good rumble strips down there now. But it was fun. So I did a bunch of that. Snowmobile raced for a long time. And then
did you ever, with a snowmobile racing, did you ever do like the I-500?
Okay. So I didn't drive at the I-500. Okay. I was crew member team. I built the engines, helped build the chassis, help do setup and things along those lines. And we would actually go out on lake up in by Gaylord and plow an I-500 track on the ice. And go out there
for practice
for days, and
but that's one of those sporting events that like I'm gonna partake of at some point just to say that I've seen it.
So we tried for a long time to win that race because at that time when I was doing it, we were 100% Articat, and Articat had never won that race.
Okay.
Last year I ran it, I think was the 36th annual. 36 years, and Articat had never won it.
Yeah.
And every manufacturer had won it at some point.
Right.
Ski Rule, John Deere, manufacturers who are long gone had won that race.
When's the last time John Deere made a snowmobile? Right.
And Articat couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And, we finished third 4 times, leading the race with less than 10 laps to go twice. And some sort of, it's 8.5 hour race.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 8.5 hours of abuse.
Yeah.
And you start out on a perfectly smooth glass ice 1 mile oval.
Yeah.
And 500 laps later, there are holes 3 feet deep.
Yeah.
And you're just pounding the
thing. It's trenched. Yeah. How about that finish there a year or two ago where they were literally like
side by side?
Yeah.
That was awesome. And it was cool to see him win because of his story and his dad passed away there and things along those lines. But it was a cool finish.
Yeah.
But I've seen really bad stuff there. And I've seen things I don't even want to talk about there.
Yeah.
But the race is dangerous. It is a very dangerous race.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things where if you can say that you won that race, dude.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because they don't trade off or anything. It's one dude, right?
No, you have multiple drivers.
Okay. Okay.
And it depends on the team. So there was a guy, John Wick III. He'd run that whole race by himself. They won't even let you enter the race unless you have a backup rider.
Okay.
You have to have at least 2 riders to enter the race, and it might even be 3 now. But he had riders that literally registered and
just showed up,
never rode a snowmobile.
Yeah.
He would run that whole thing by himself. I mean, to do it, I mean, he's just what a guy. But it's so you'll run about 80 to 100 laps.
Okay.
And then you come in for fuel, change the skis, change drivers, and head out. But when you get down to the end of the race, depends on how cautions fall and things like that, you're going to keep your best rider on at the end of the race. And he might have to run 200 laps straight, But, you think about running 200 laps in a circle track car. Yeah. You're winded at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so now.
And it's not -4, and you're not.
Well, and, those snowmobiles, you literally only use the seat down the straightaway, but then at the end of the race, the dips and the moguls are so high.
Yeah, you can't sit down. Yeah.
Now you're standing up down the straightaway, and you are literally hanging off the side of it with your elbow touching the ice in the corner. The handlebars are all custom made. Hang you off the side of the left side of the snowmobile. And it's, you think about those guys doing that for 200 laps straight, or John doing it for 500 laps, what an athlete those guys are.
Yeah. It's they don't look like me.
No. But honestly, it takes a heck of a machine to do it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the attrition is so high.
Yeah.
It's hard to not break through.
It's just one of those events, like there's just motorsports event as a car enthusiast, as a motorsports fan. Mm-hmm. There's just certain events that I just want to witness. Yeah. And that's one of them that, like, I'm positive I'm only going to really want to do it once, because it's going to be freezing cold night. It's all,
This year it was in the 40s. So
this year was an anomaly. Yeah, but it's one of those things of, like, as a spectator, I'm going to want to watch it once. I'm sure that, but it's just such a cool thing that they do. So,
and it's been going on so long. It has such a heritage to it. Yeah. And it really is still one of the premier races to win in snowmobiles. Yeah. I mean, and always will be, I think.
Yeah. But that's kind of neat. From that to running Bristol in a front wheel drive. You've had quite a varied experience.
Yeah, I raced motocross. I raced snowcross. So snowmobiles I've raced on every surface. I've raced on asphalt.
Drag racing or some type of, like, circuit?
Drag racing.
Okay.
On the water, though, we run a circuit.
Right.
Watercross.
Racing.
Yeah. We run.
Well, I knew that, but, like, I was trying to rack my brain. I don't think I've ever seen a snowmobile race on pavement. I've seen them drag race. I've seen the drag racing stuff. So I kind of thought that might be it. So
yeah. They run some pretty wicked ETs too.
They don't weigh that much for what they can. Because, like, PRI, you could go and see, and I mean, there's guys making 900, 1,000 horse out of them snowmobiles, and like, it doesn't surprise me, because if you have that much track on the ground that actually will bite, like, it would go. Like, it could take off pretty good too.
So back in 2002 or 3, I think it was, we were running on asphalt, running the actual NHRA Pro Stock Snowmobile circuit. Yeah. So we went out to Brainerd that year, and it was before everybody, and Camoplast included, which is who makes the drag tracks, had figured out that we had too much rubber on the ground. We couldn't get pounds per square inch to put it.
Okay.
Down into
yeah. No, that makes sense.
Because, it's 15 inches wide and it's 121 inches long. Yeah. And you only.
What would you weigh? What would a sled weigh?
675 with the driver on it. 675 pounds. Back then we were making. They were 2,000 cc max, naturally aspirated, or 1,000 cc max, naturally aspirated. And we were making 300 horse. Yeah. Turning them 10, 11,000 RPM. Yeah. And we could then we were running 820s, I think was the fastest, at 165 miles an hour and a quarter. So it's just, the horsepower to weight ratio was crazy. Yeah. But traction was the issue. Right. So the more you could hook it up, the harder you could launch it, the faster you could go. Like, for example, our 60-foot times on pavement were 120s to 130s. Okay. are 60-foot times on grass.
Yeah.
Which
where you can actually bite.
They call it grass drag racing, but it's actually clay that's rolled and watered, and you put studs into it, and you have 100% hookup. Our 60-foot times on that were 0.7s.
Yeah.
So
that's hard to imagine hanging on to.
It's hard to hang on to. So you build the seat. To fit you and keep you
to
there,
give you some bite.
Foot pegs to put your feet up against, and perfectly straight handlebars so that there's any angle you're sliding off. So I did a lot of different kinds of snowmobile racing, and that's when I really got into the dynoing and tuning and all of that stuff. We bought our first dyno in '98, I think, or '99. And I've had a dyno ever since. Of some sort. I've had my chassis dyno. I've had a chassis dyno. Chassis dynoing for cars was newer to me. I've always had engine dynos. So my first chassis dyno I bought in 2018. And then, but as far as snowmobiles, I've always had an engine dyno for snowmobiles. And snowmobiles in early 2000s started going from carbureted to fuel injected. So that's where I started with fuel injection tuning, and I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to make fuel injection work. Everybody else that we raced against took the fuel injection off, put carburetors on so they could tune it. And we showed up, we're racing snowmobiles with fuel injection and winning. And people are like, what the heck? And ISR actually started making rules against fuel injection and what we were doing. And it's actually comes from the factory with it. And you're telling me I can't use it.
So I gotta unfactory a stock sled to do this. Okay.
So that's kind of where the dynoing and tuning and fuel injection stuff all started for me, was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then it's just, as soon as, and that's actually why I ended up racing front wheel drives.
Because they were the only fuel injected class.
And just like, you're talking about me pulling on you in 2014, there was nothing done to it other than I tuned it, and I tuned the shit out of it, and that's, even 2016 when I won the championship and won all the features that I won, and, I didn't have a big built motor. It was, it's actually the motor that I won that championship with is still in my daughter's Zoo stock car. It is literally that old.
Well, the big thing with that one is really, you and I have been having this conversation is those V6s can just, we'd step on it at the start line, at the restart line, and just the first 2,000 RPMs, you'd make 150 more foot-pounds. But like once we were up to speed, we'd come out of the corner at basically the same speed.
On top of that, we had to run automatics back then. So I was still running an automatic transmission. So guess what? You can tune that too. So I had it tuned. It would actually downshift to first. And yank real hard off the corner on the restart, and then it would very aggressively shift to second. So, that's really why my cars were always so fast, was more the tuning side of it. I mean, I made it turn as good as I could make it turn with a big, heavy V6.
What do those V6s weigh?
The engine itself? Honestly, I don't remember. I weighed one, and I weighed it because I did a V6 swap in a Opel GT. 69 Opel GT. And the reason I weighed it was, and I can't for the life of me remember what it weighed, but the big 4-cylinder that came out of that car, that came in it from the factory, I pulled the engine and transmission out and weighed it. And then I took the V6 and the 5-speed transmission that we were putting back in the car and weighed it. And the V6 and the T5 transmission actually weighed 30 pounds less than the original Opel stuff. Reason being is the Opel was all cast iron. They had everything was cast iron.
So according to a quick Google search with Wikipedia for the Buick V6, something changed and it weighs 392 pounds.
I can believe that. That's got to be close.
The Series 2 is 3,800, weighs only 22 pounds more than the all-aluminum high-feature V6 that currently dominates GM 6-cylinder applications, despite being an all-cast iron design. So,
I for some reason 350 pounds is what I remember, but
still a lot.
Significantly heavier than a 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
And it isn't really,
and it's on the right side too, isn't it?
It's on the right
Yeah.
side, but it isn't just the engine. The parts that even myself didn't think about for a long time was, my engine weighs 150, 200 pounds more than your engine, but then bolted to it, I have 2 headers.
Yeah, you got 2 headers. Your intake manifold's bigger.
Yeah.
All the drive stuff on the front and all that kind of stuff.
It's all the
and the
bolt-on
transmission
parts that weigh, and the transmission.
Yeah.
So, but that's what got me into racing front wheel drives was just for the fact that I could tune them, and play with it, and that's why my cars did as well as they did for as long as they did.
Ben Phelps piped in as we were searching that 350 pounds roughly, because the 3800 has cast iron heads. So
he's the guy that would know. So every single go fast part that's in my car comes from Ben Phelps.
Yeah.
Watt Tech, Wide Open Throttle Technologies. They're
okay.
You see that there's a bunch of their parts around here. We're a dealer for them too. Those are custom camshafts, fuel injectors, throttle body adapters, all
some stage 2 beehive springs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they 100% Ben and his dad, they 100% keep me with an engine that runs.
Yeah.
If I need anything, he's always there.
Yeah.
And him and I teamed up in 2015. 2014, I ran 100% stock stuff with a mail order tune that I got from some guy that was terrible. I'm not going to mention that guy, but the 2015 is when I hooked up with Ben and we started tuning ourselves.
Yeah. And you've had the Watt Tech on the side of the car basically since.
Yep, Watt Tech's always been on the car, and 2015 was the year that we had HP tuners on the car, and that was they were actually a sponsor. They 100% sponsored us in 2015, nice. And that was when we got the ability to tune them.
Yeah,
it wasn't ever that I didn't know how to tune. It was I didn't have the ability.
Gotcha.
Didn't have the equipment to do it. And 2015 is when we got it, and things changed quickly after that.
Yeah.
I mean, first weekend out, I broke the track record in 2015, and it was, I only ran, I think 7 races in 2015 and I won 5 of them.
Nice.
Finished second in the other 2.
I'm trying to think 2015,
the only race I ran with you was the World Series.
Okay.
And I ended up with a flat right rear.
Well, because 2015, I don't remember. Something went wrong sideways for me. Was 2015 the year it rained at Super Shoe?
I didn't run Super Shoe in 2015.
I think I finished second the year because that was the year Mike Long won, and I was chasing him down. Like he started on the pole, and I started towards the back.
In 2015.
Well, he won Super Shoe that year, but he started like on the pole. And it was raining with like 5 laps in. It started raining, and we were like half a second slower than we were supposed to be. But if that race had been 2 laps longer, I'd have got to him and around him. But because the other one I remember, because 2015, I think we ran VCTS races there. Because 2015, Dan got me. I think I got one, and Dan got the other one when we came. But I don't know if you ran with because it was the VCTS North.
VCTS. It was not World Series that I.
Yeah, I didn't run World Series in 2015.
No, 2015 it was VCTS. Yep.
Yeah,
and I ended up with
which
a
is not
right rear with 5 to go, running third.
It's now the NCTS. It was a Vors North. It's now NCTS.
It was still a restrictor then.
We were 1.25 inches back then. So, but yeah, that was because 2014, the first time there, I finished second to Chris Jennings. I was running the 2.4. And then we swapped to the 2.0, and I won the rest of the year because we done all right in 2014 after that. So, there we go. Scott Gates says, "How much is your dyno time? I need to come chat with you because Scott's running he's running the Grand Prix and he's building a Grand Amanat with the 38s and that."
Yeah, just shoot me a message. We can figure it out. I do the dyno time a few different ways. If you just want to come in here and run your car. And you're going to tune it, and you don't need anything from me other than dyno time. To rent dyno time is like 160 to 175 bucks, depending on what we're doing. that includes me tying the car down, setting everything up, and getting it all ready to go.
Yeah.
If you want me to do a full tune, it depends on what platform you're on. It depends on
depends on how screwed up it is to start.
Well,
depends on how well it runs when it gets here.
I'll be honest, it's been rough here. So we've been doing about we've been doing a handful a week for the past few weeks, past month probably. And I think I've only had 2 cars that weren't broke when they got here.
So I have been that guy every time I've gone to Force in a different capacity every time. The first time I went over there was the first time I was on the ECU Master.
Yep.
And I still, as far as I know, I'm the only person in the world in a first-gen Neon with one, right? Mm-hmm. Which just sounds so cool. Until you need help. Something ain't quite right. It took us almost 2.5 hours.
And on the other side of it, it's still an ECU Masters. I mean, it is a good ECU. It's just the platform is very difficult to maneuver.
In all seriousness, the issue is just if I had a traditional, if it was an LS, honestly, I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
It's just
because there's a lot of people doing it.
The first gen Neon crank pattern is goofy. Like I'll have to show you what it is. It's like 60, 80, 20, 140. Like it's goofy, right? I mean, it works well with their PCM. Mega Squirt, it's built into the Mega Squirt because Neon was one of the first ones that was really using it widely. But the ECU Master, I was when I first went there, I got it running. I had videos of it running. Mm-hmm. We took it there and it wouldn't start. And it took us 2.5 hours to finally get it to start.
Yep.
And then Tyler's like, you've got like 30 minutes left. And we just kind of made it safe.
Yep.
And it never started. I burned up 5-6 starters. And like the problem was I was telling it that there was 2 teeth. You need to pay attention to 2 teeth, ignore everything else. But the problem is you can only tell it to ignore like 150 degrees.
Oh.
And it would see 2 sets of teeth. And until it picked the cam sensor up, it would try both sets. It said this one.
Yeah.
So it's jumping like 35 degrees in timing.
Either direction.
And it would almost catch, and then it would jump to the other one, and it would, and it was bad. I've switched over to the SRT, the second gen, the NCG pattern, which is an 18.2, 18.2 missing tooth. It still just doesn't like it. For whatever reason, it's just not quite what it needs to be. My goal, honestly, is to put the car on that new Mega Squirt, the new MS3 Micro that they got, or Mini or whatever. I want to run that. But the first year I went over Tyler, 2.5 hours, finally got it running. Next time I went over there, like I put a new O2 sensor in it, but it was so rich that it blackened it up just before as we put on the dyno. And then so I had to get plugs in that. Then the next time I went over, I had bigger injectors in it. I had like 27 or 29 pound injectors. We were maxing them out. That was one he keeps adding fuel and nothing's happening. And we're like, what the hell,
Right.
And he's like, wait a minute. And he looks and we're at 110% duty cycle. He's like, well, that's why.
Yeah.
So I ran to a junkyard and pulled turbo PT Cruiser injectors out, brought them back. He, checked them. We put them in, made power.
Yeah.
And then
Luckily, the junkyard's across the street.
No, I think I went to Holland.
Oh, did you?
I went to the Pick-a-Pull. No, we tried the one across the street.
Didn't have them.
Yeah, because it was one where we were looking for, because I knew they'd fit. I knew they'd wear, like I knew we could use them. Because they're like 560 cc.
Yeah.
And I was on like 280 cc or 300 or something like that. But yeah, it was bad. And the last time I went was basically the closest that I've been. But as I was telling you, the O2 sensor died. And so then we couldn't data log. It's like, I've been that guy every time I've gone to the dyno, but never the same way twice, so we're learning slightly.
I've had a bad run of them for a little bit. Had a Camaro SS 6.2 come in. Wow, that thing just had so many things wrong with it. I think the biggest horsepower gain we made the whole day was just fixing problems. And come to find out there's a ground wire on the back of one of the heads that was there. It was hooked up, but the bolt was tight. Problem was the bolt was just a little bit too long. So the bolt got tight in the bottom of the hole and it never clamped the wire down. Took forever to find that. Once we found it, the dyno session probably took less than an hour. But we worked on it for 3.5 hours to figure out why it wouldn't run. So things like that just take time, and it's really hard to charge for things like that. And it's hard to, I'm a guy who's, I like to feel like I gave everybody a fair,
get their money's worth. Yeah.
I don't, and it's unfortunate when they come in with broke or something wrong with them, and you end up with a lot of time in it. And meanwhile, you got the next guy waiting, so we do the best we can, and we try not to charge people an ungodly amount of money to fix issues, because issues happen.
Yeah.
And in some cases, issues are why they're here.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what the issue is.
I'm in a couple different tuning groups on Facebook, and like that's one of the biggest things that people deal with is the car shows up and it's not ready for the dyno. Like, what do you do? And like, what's what that's the post is like, what does everybody do? And the amount of people they're like, we charge a $250 fee. Like, if your car's not ready, we charge you X amount, and then we can work on it, but then we charge you, and there's some of these shops, they're not, they're big time where they're really doing some stuff, but they're trying to schedule 3 or 4 a day and backing up. But it's still that case of like, we're all building cars that we're going to we can only test at the track.
Right.
And so trying to duplicate that and,
So, what I've been doing and what we'll probably continue to do at this point is we are a full service auto repair shop.
Right.
And we have a labor rate for full service auto repair.
Yeah.
If we load the car on the dyno and it's got a problem and we're going to work on the car, we revert to our full service auto repair labor rate.
Yeah.
And our labor rate is lower than every shop within 40 miles of here.
Yeah.
But the difference between putting wear and tear on my chassis dyno that's in the floor that costs a lot of money versus me working on the car.
Yeah.
There's a significant difference in cost.
Yeah.
So that's the way we've been doing it. That's the way we'll probably continue to do it. I'm not going to, just because you roll your car in and it's not perfectly ready to dyno doesn't mean, that's going to be a $250 charge. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But so we'll probably continue to do it the way we've been doing it. Fix what we got to fix and charge accordingly for fixing what we got to fix. And then we'll go back to dynoing. And maybe, in a couple of cases, we've kind of changed how the goal in dynoing, so we spent all this time fixing it. Let's make sure it's safe, go race it, and we'll attack it another day and see if we can find more power.
Well, it depends on too, because like I can use Scott as an example because I know Scott, like he's running a 3800.
Yep.
And his stuff's fairly basic. As far as I know, Scott, if you're doing something crazy, you can tell me. But like his stuff's fairly basic. Well, you've got enough time on the 3800 setup that you can probably give him a lot of pointers. And if somebody's coming in here with a GM V6, a 60-degree V6, you can really set them up for success. Whereas if somebody's coming in here with something, you're like, well, this is the second one I've ever done. Like, yeah, we can look at it, but we're going to learn as we go. Like, that would be the difference too. Like, you can really set somebody up. Yep. Hey, these are the things you need to make sure to check because these are the common things that we find to really go through. So,
but also the other thing
Scott says not yet. It's stock. So there you go.
Well, and the other thing is Scott's already raced it.
Mm-hmm.
He's raced it this season.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty certain that it doesn't have any issues.
Should run.
Right.
Yeah.
So, there may be issues.
Yeah.
He
might find out that he's down 50 horse than what he should be.
Oh, I had one that came in recently, raced it the whole season last year.
Yeah.
It had multiple sensors that didn't work.
Yeah.
And important sensors.
Yeah.
And
well, hey, you don't have to worry about the check engine light if you don't have a check engine light.
Just by fixing those sensors, we picked up a bunch of horsepower.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Right.
You can be racing and not know that there's a problem.
The amount of guys in the neon world that they'll pull their temp sensor out to screw in, the gauge without realizing that, if the computer doesn't warm up, it never comes out of enrichment and it is poor in fuel in. Like you are losing power and that's, it feels sluggish, right? And it's like, put temp sensor back in, like put the temp sensor in the proper spot. Yeah. And it's just, you don't need to it doesn't matter. Just run and I'm like, it matters. Like it matters. Like,
so twice now. And they actually both times have been 60-degree V6s. They actually took the temp sensor out, left it plugged in, zip tied it to the harness because somebody told them it'll make more horsepower.
Oh yeah. Well, you gotta give it more fuel. I need bigger injectors for more fuel.
Well, and I'm sure that at some point when the temperature's right and the weather's right and all of the stars align as they are, there might be a point when that does make more power.
Yeah.
Because
when the engine falls within this temperature range and the temperature outside is this and your throttle's this and
so I'm not going to tell anybody that's not true. It very well could be true when everything is exactly right. But having that water temperature sensor do its job and tell the computer what it's supposed to know, and then tuning the computer accordingly to work with it, you end up with a much better setup. And I've seen it twice now, and both times was done intentionally, and I was just confused. I couldn't figure out why we would do that.
I've seen it the same way, and like it's one where part of what I want to do with you at some point when we can get the engine here, and honestly it's one I've thought about doing it with Doc where I come over, because that is it's a bone stock motor in that car. And I've thought about one where, as much as I really like Tyler, he's a great guy. He's given me a ton of power. Like we've talked about my numbers compared to, like, I got some stout shit, right? I did. It's not in one piece anymore, right? But with Force and the business that they're running, like, it's expensive to be on his dyno. Ask me how I know. It's expensive, but I don't want to tie him up as much. And being able to come here and to do it myself, where you can continue working, we're like, that's something we'll talk about, because I want to dispel some of those myths of, look, this is us just pouring fuel into this thing. I want to put bigger injectors in it to show, look, we lost power. Here's what our fuel did. We unplugged the sensors. We did, that's the kind of stuff I'd really like to dispel some of those stock tuning myths. And I think that would be I think we could do that together pretty well. So, especially with how repeatable the dyno jet is.
Well, and I had one last week or 2 weeks ago. It was
Scott says, okay, there's problem number one. I'm thinking he's got his coolant temp sensor zip tied to something. Scott, you got your coolant temp sensor zip tied to something?
Okay, that would be 3 if that's the case.
Well, you haven't seen it yet, so technically
he might fix it before he comes. But I had one last week or the week before that it was actually a very well built 4-cylinder race engine. Fair amount of money in the engine, and he bought it secondhand.
Okay.
Came with injectors, came with the headers, came with everything. It was complete. And the injectors didn't work with his wiring harness, so he put his stock ones in it. Engine's supposed to make power somewhere around $7,000, and at 4,000 RPM,
out of fuel already.
We were out of fuel. AFR shot through the roof, and the duty cycle was 103%.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So then we pulled out an injector, read the part number off of it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a tiny little injector.
Yeah. So you're trying to squeeze 5 gallons of fuel through a 1 gallon jug.
So I actually ended up pulling injectors out of my daughter's Zoostock car that night, stuffing them in there because they were the right injectors with the right connector.
Yeah.
And we were able to get it finished tuning on it. But little things like that where it isn't necessarily that he did something wrong. He just didn't know. I mean, well, heck, my harness won't plug in, so I'll have to use my stock one.
Oh, these are the wrong injectors.
Probably didn't realize they're even a different size.
Scott says it's just unhooked. So
okay, just hook it back up.
Which all right, question. Which one would be better with your experience with the V6s, unhooked or zip tied off? Which one would be better? Neither are good. If you're watching this later, neither are good. Hook it up. But which one would be better?
Zip tied to the harness would be significantly better. And the only reason I say that is because when you unplug it, it defaults to negative 40 degrees.
Okay.
Negative 40 degrees. You never get to. You never get to close loop. You're always in warm up enrichment. I mean, and
I can only imagine how much negative 40 is for warm up enrichment.
Right. It adds a ton of fuel, and ignition timing doesn't work like it's supposed to, and so on. But
because it's trying to heat up.
It is.
Yeah.
It's trying to warm the engine up, is what it's trying to do. And the way to do that is,
put fuel in it, put some heat in it. Yeah, ignite it.
Warm it up.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, it's just like your old carbureted car.
Yeah, it's choked.
Needed to choke to start.
Yeah.
Well, it's thinking, holy cow, for negative 40, I got to really put some fuel to this thing. The only saving grace you might have there is that the intake air temperature sensor does the same thing. So if you unplug the intake air temperature sensor, it also goes to negative 40. That's just default for GM.
Right.
If the intake air temperature sensor is still plugged in, then you've got an argument between the two, and I really can't tell you which way it goes.
Okay. That would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get, because that'd definitely be one, like, people don't understand how complex the factory PCMs are, like, just how many tables there are for those instances.
Well,
so
what's worse is the things we can't see. So, HB tuners did a great job of giving us access to be able to tune the cars.
Yeah.
But there are still things that they didn't code.
Yeah.
There's still things that happen inside of an OBD2 computer that we can't see. A good example of that.
What's up, Jordan? And Scott says that would explain why it lopes like it has a cam at idle.
It's because it's super rich.
Yeah.
So the, like a good example of something we can't see. Ben and I actually worked on it for years, all the way up to 2021, when we finally decided, you know what, get rid of that OBD2 and put in a Mega Squirt.
Is this a problem that you told me about for a long time?
Yeah. So you put it on the dyno and you make horsepower and you get your timing map where you want it and everything's perfect. And then you go out on the racetrack and you log the data and you go out on the track and pulls like a mule and everything's great. And about lap 2, it doesn't pull quite as hard.
Yeah.
And not really, it took us a long time to figure out what was going on. And then we realized, looking at the data log, it's like, hey, we're losing 5 degrees of timing.
Yeah.
6 degrees of timing, 8 degrees of timing. There's absolutely nowhere that we can see in that software.
Yeah. There's some map and there's some hidden part that's compensating for something that you can't see.
And it's something to do, it has to be like an abuse mode type of thing or something along those lines, because it only happens after you go to wide open throttle at high RPM.
Yeah. For X amount of time.
Right. It would be good for like a lap or two. So, 2015, 2016, every time a caution come out, I'm shutting off my car.
Restart it.
Restart it. So I got full timing for the restart, and so there's just
needed some sort of delay box that you could do it where, like, once you get going, if it starts dying, you hit that, and like you come out of the corner, when you'd lift, it would like reset it for a second and come back in. Like, you see, very complicated solution.
Very complicated.
Because we talked about this 2016, maybe 2017. I know for sure, because 2017, I'm pretty sure you set fast time at Super Shoe because I won. No,
I actually did not set fast time. I was the fastest car to actually race, but Biddle beat
Oh
me,
yeah, Paul set
crashed.
fast time, but he something happened, involved another car. I didn't see it. I don't actually know. There was another car. They got together in practice. Yeah, because I think you were second quick.
I was second.
Yeah, because I was like third or fourth quick. I think I was fourth quick. But I won that year. I just got through traffic, and we talked afterwards. I'm like, "What happened, dude?" And because that was the year, I still every now and then it pops up in my memories because Jeff Sales pulled out after us to catch up, and they were filming him going through traffic. And so whoever it was filming from the track or from the grandstands. He was close enough to me that almost the entire race you can watch me go through the field. Mm-hmm. And it was just when the green came out, we come through turns 3 and 4, and like fourth row wiggled and everybody stacked up, and they're coming out of turn 2, and the top 5 guys are all coming out of 4. Like, we were so far behind. And I just remember I get very few compliments from my buddy Mike about my driving. Like it like he'll admit I'm a good driver, but rarely is it like, dude, that was impressive. I came in from winning that one, and Mike's like, that's the best race I've ever seen you fucking run. He's like, dude, you were on a mission. So like 2017's etched in my brain, but we talked afterwards, and I think that was the first time you talked to me about that problem.
Yeah.
So
in 2017, I was fast in qualifying, and I was good in the feature, but I ended up I got into somebody, I think it was lap traffic actually. Yeah. And after the race, I checked the toe, and I had like 1.5 inches of toe out.
Yeah.
And it'd been a tie rod, inner tie rod. But I finished 5th, and it was a win to me because honestly, that's the only Super Show I've ever finished.
Nice.
So
I've I have some success at Super Shoe. I sat down. This was real petty of me. After I broke 2 years ago, somebody on the internet was talking shit, and I'm not gonna lie to I'm not gonna lie to you. I would tell you off air otherwise. I honestly don't remember who it was, but they were talking about like who they thought was gonna win, and somebody said that like, oh, I thought Todd had a shot, and they basically dismissed me about how I was like a has-been or something like that. And, it doesn't really show up for Super Shoe or whatever. And I'm like, there's nobody that has a better average finish than I do at Super Shoe. And I searched it up, and qualifying, heat, and feature, if I finish, I have like a 1.8 or a 2.1 average finish. But I got like 2 years I didn't finish.
Yeah.
Right. But like I've won it 3 times. And so like Super Shoe for me is one of those where like I do really well at Super Shoe.
Yep.
It's just end of the year at Kazoo for a long time. I mean, you remember when they first wrote the rules where they allowed 4 cylinders where Neons had the same restrictions as a bunch of other stuff. You had to run like a single cam auto. You could have a K series car with a 5-speed, but like Neons weren't, because I'd had so much success for a minute. But yeah, it was one where Super Shoe's always been one that I've had a decent amount. So
I've just never had luck at Super Shoe. I've always been fast, but I just have never had luck at Super Shoe. I always get caught up in somebody else's stuff or something. Yeah. Or something breaks or whatever.
If we'd have had one year that it was the first when Dave Leonard Jr. the left front wheel came off, I was going to win that year. That was the year Biddle won, I think, his second one. I was passing Paul coming to the checkered. And we had to go back one lap, and I had nothing for him then. He made the wrong decision in lap traffic, and I was going to buzz money else. Like I had him, but the wheel came off. So I got finished second there. Super Shoe has always had good luck, but I've known a bunch of people. Like Tyler McGann was one that like he finished second to me in 2014 and was ecstatic. And I still to this day think that's like the only Super Shoe he's finished and stuff like that. Like I don't know what it is. I've always been able to get through traffic. I've always done okay. I don't know if knock on every wood I can find. I honestly don't know. I think every time I have not finished Super Shoe has been a mechanical failure. I don't think I've been involved in an on-track deal.
I can't say that. I've had terrible luck at Super Shoe. 2016, heck, I had no DNFs for the year and regular points nights and won every race but 2, and I just had great luck. I think I fixed one single little dent in the car the whole season, and then go to Super Shoe and end up wadded up in the corner, and it just Super Shoe is just bad luck for me.
I've known guys that way, and it's one where like I always think so highly of Super Shoe because I've always had good luck. I mean, because I ran Super Shoe. I ran Super Shoe in Call of the Wild when there was no front wheel drive class. That was crazy. Running Call of the Wild against. I've been on track with the rocket car.
Oh yeah.
Like that was the fun part for me. Like I didn't lift going into turn 1 and he rolled in off the throttle. Like I wasn't just like to listen to that thing go beside you and go, oh fuck, and you're just like it's done some stuff. But yeah, like because Call of the Wild, I blew the right rear off one time, which was crazy. And then Super Shoe with everybody, I blew up. I've had mechanical failures, but I've not, again. So yeah, George, this might be my first Super Shoe this year. Jordan, sounds like you're gonna love it or hate it. I kind of love it. Dan's not quite the fan,
I can't say that I've always had fun at Super Shoe. I just have never had luck.
Yeah.
That's
me at Galesburg.
Never been well, and I've always been fast. I've just never had luck.
End of the year at Kazoo, man. I'm feast or famine. We run top 3 basically, or I don't finish. Like that seems to be
2017 is the last Super Shoe I ran. I have not
run
since.
Yeah.
I finally finished one. I'm good.
I didn't run last year. I was going to. I was getting Doc around to run it. I still kind of wish I had because I'd had more time to finish out. But the wife had double kidney stones and, had to go to the hospital for a while. And so it was that was obviously more important than, she got out of the hospital and I was able to go to Super Shoe. I just didn't have time to finish the car. So like I still went, I had fun. I supported everybody. It was actually the first Super Shoe I've ever gone to start to finish. I didn't have a car. And so I was able to go and just have fun and be there. Went down and helped my brother-in-law, but I've every other year I've at least tried to race. I might have blown up in practice. I did that, or blown up in qualifying. I did that one time. We we swapped the head on one of our Neons and put this badass top end on. Forgot to put oil back in it, so we went out with like 2 quarts in it. Yeah, that wasn't good.
Oil's kind of important.
Yeah, we learned that lesson. Luckily, it was a stock bottom end, so it didn't really cost us that much. But Amanda says, see if they try and do it like last year, or if they will go back to all together. I don't know. Like 7 classes for Super Shoe worked out real good last year. I love Kalamazoo with a passion. I have run really, really well at Kalamazoo. I've won a lot of races at Kalamazoo. But last Super Shoe, I did not agree with the way they did the classes. And I have not been a big fan of all of the rule fuckery they did in the offseason this year for us. So I will support Kazoo to death. I still like Gary. I still love that track. They disappoint. And it was one with Super Shoe where it's like, well, we got street stocks and we got late models and we got front wheel drives, and we got DOTs and we got Super Shoe, man. You got front wheel drives, you got rear wheel drives. Yeah. Like, come on. Right?
It's always worked.
Yeah. But yes, Robert says no more working that hard in Super Shoe ever again. Dude, Robert, that poor dude last year, we ended up swapping like we did so much work to that car last year. And I did like 15%. I'm not into I put work in. Robbie worked his ass off. We literally took the oil filter off, getting ready to go again, and water's dripping out the oil filter. Oh, and I mean, we're literally like screwing on a new oil filter, filling with oil, and he's going to go out and hit the track. Like did we swap the whole motor or just the head and all that, Robbie? Like ton of work into it. And again, Robbie did 90%. Like I kind of helped. I don't want to take any credit away from everything that Robbie did. But dude, we're underneath there and you squeeze the radiator hose and it goes out the oil filter housing. And them two's not supposed to commingle, so whole motor. Yeah, dude, it was, and I've done it. Like
I'll tell you, I have a lot of respect for guys who change engines and will go that far at the racetrack. I've only actually lost an engine a couple of times at the racetrack. I shouldn't say that. 2014, I probably lost about five of them, I think. We were running stock engines, and at that time we were still figuring it out, and that extra quart of oil, that was all it needed.
Crazy how the little things sometimes.
But anyway, I've never been in a position to where I felt like I needed to do that or would do that. The guys who do that, man, all respect to them. That they're hustling and they're working hard, and without all the proper tools and everything that they would normally use, and it just guys that do that are.
I have a ton of respect. Like Robbie, man, I was, dude, I'll help. I'll do as much as I can to help. And I'd like Robbie I'd like to think that Robbie would acknowledge that I did a bunch to help, but it's not for me. Like I've had it where I've commanded, there's been a problem and I'm just like, nope, we're done. What was the one that I remember too is, and this was my fault. Travis, the one Super Shoe, I don't remember what year, is like, hey man, I need help timing it. And I was like, dude, I can time a single cam in my sleep. Like, I got you, dude. 30 minutes in, we'll have that thing running. And it was like 32 minutes later, we are outside the gates after practice on Friday, crowd of people around watching. And I'm talking the whole time as I do, we get it all set up. My dumbass forgot to tighten the cam bolt. And so we fired it, and if it sounded great till it didn't. And it's because the pin sheared, right? And we needed to put a head on it. And it's like, and I was like, listen, you go get the head. By the time you get back, we'll be ready for you. And by God, when they brought back, we put the head on it. We got it all timed. And I'm standing there. I'm like, all right, everybody's witness, right? I'm like, I tightened the cam bolt, right? Travis went out and blew that sumbitch up 7 laps into practice the next day. So, yeah, we've done some stuff. And like the one year at Bristol, Jacob Gustafson, they blew up his dad. They went to a salvage yard that they opened just for him, showed up the next morning with like $30 to McDonald's sandwiches for everybody, helped them pull a motor out of a car, was back to Bristol, and they swapped the motor just in time to make like the new Stars feature that night just to run the next day. And like, it's one where like, I'm 100% like, I'm in awe of that kind of commitment. Like, and it's like this year, like Jake Albright's like, yeah, I got spare motor in there. I got this and that. And I'm like, I got spindles. I'm like, I have sensors and spindles and fuel pumps and all that. But
I don't even go that far.
Depends on where I'm going.
Yeah.
Bristol, learn my lesson.
Yeah.
I took all that stuff. Go to Kazoo. I'll bring the stuff to load it back up. Now I will usually try to take sensors, fuel injectors, stuff like that. Stuff that's an easy diagnose and fix at the racetrack, because if I'm there, I don't want a cam sensor to be the reason I can't race, right? But if it's like, hey, I don't, like I'm to the point now back in the day, I'd damn near swap anything but a motor.
Right.
But like now it's to the point, now when we haul out to Madeira, we might take a motor, we might take, but I'm driving 36 hours to go race.
Right.
I might take some stuff, but like, I guys that travel with a motor and a cherry picker just in case, like they got my respect, but I'm past that point. So yeah.
I'm too old for that.
Maybe that's the problem. I told the wife I'm almost 50 and she like, you are not, you're almost 40. I'm like, 39 is a lot closer to 50 than, than it is to, it's closer to 50 than 20.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So now that's my favorite joke now.
Fun of 50 now?
No, no. It made her laugh.
Careful.
So, hey, I'm almost there. So I don't look like it, but Robbie said he's past that too. So
yeah.
And I give Robbie credit too, because he came to Bristol with me a few years. Like Robbie's been my right-hand man a few times. He's really stepped up and helped me get a lot of shit done. So Robbie's the kind of guy, if he decides it's getting done, it's getting done. Like it don't matter if it should be done. If he decides it is, it's done. So yeah. Dad says I'd take 52. Yeah, I know. So yeah. Well, so the best one we ever did, Dad blew up at Angola Friday night. Okay. Doubleheader weekend for VCTS North challenge stuff. Blew up at Angola. The way that it worked out, we couldn't leave Angola until like we got back to Battle Creek. I want to say at like 11:45, maybe midnight. Right. Well, we'd made the decision. We're standing there at Angola and we're like, look, we got a block and crank and rods and pistons and a head, and like we can build a motor. And we made that decision and we drove back. And we had me and Earl and Dad and Tina and Camille. Flipper was helping us. One or two other people, I think. I walked in the garage and pulled the plastic off a bare block and started building. And they started tearing the motor apart. And we made it home. Me and Flipper came to my house because he lived really far away. We got about an hour and a half of sleep, woke back up, drove back to Battle Creek, loaded up, came to Kalamazoo. That was the first time I ran a 2-4 for 2 races. It was the first time I'd ever ran one back-to-back successfully. We pulled in with Dad's car, and everyone's like, why did you tow the car here? Like, aren't you guys? And we're like, oh, he's racing. And they're like, oh, did you fix it? We're like, no, it's a whole new motor. And they're like, oh, did you have another? No. We had a block.
We built
and even that one, again, Bristol, maybe. Anywhere else, man, I'd be like, yeah, you can race next week. Now, if we came back and Dad had another motor on the stand and we just had to swap it out or something, we're getting to that point. We can do that fairly quickly. But yeah, so you guys and gals watching, they're willing to do that. You got Dan and I's respect.
Absolutely.
Okay. But now part of that is how much nicer is not having that pressure of not points racing though.
Yes.
Because that's the thing that gets you that. Yeah.
I enjoy not points racing. I just race when everything's right and I feel like I want to go racing, and I don't, if something goes wrong, something's bad, which the last 2 years I ran, I didn't run the full season in 2022, 2021. I ran on dirt, Midwest dirt, but I only ran a portion of that as well. But 2022 and 2023, I couldn't bring a straight car home, save my butt. I just, and I'll be honest, some of it was my own fault. I made mistakes here and there, ended up with a bent car, but it just really, those last 2 years have just been terrible. Last year I went to Bristol on the dirt with everything brand new, all dialed in, ready to go. Car was fast out of the trailer. I never even drove it before we got to Bristol. I didn't even drive it out of the shop. I loaded it in the trailer in the shop. Yeah. And unloaded and went out on the track. We were second quick first time out. And I'm like,
all right.
This is pretty good.
Yeah.
And one lap in, get the nose knocked off of it, and it bent the car bad enough that we struggled with it the rest of the year because it just the right side was
never quite right.
It was never straight, and we struggled with it the rest of the year, and we ended up tearing it up a few more times after that, and then crash at Hartford was bad. I actually
that was a bad wreck.
I actually got hurt in that one, so screwed up my shoulder pretty good, and wearing a Hans device, my helmet was on my head sideways when I stopped. I mean,
because that's the thing too is that you haven't skimped on safety. Like when you've had the containment seat and head and neck, and you buy good belts and you wear the safety gear and stuff. So
ratchet, I run ratchet belts. I run a.
Are those not just?
Oh, they're awesome.
Yeah.
For anybody who hasn't tried the ratchet belts, if you can.
Do you have them in your daughter's car?
To do it, I do.
Okay.
I put them in my daughter's car so I put brand new belts in her car, and she wanted purple. And nobody stocks purple, and I had to special order purple, and I get her a set of purple belts, and then I got my ratchet belts, and I put them in my car. Well, now I got a special order set of purple ratchet belts because I'm not gonna. Once I actually used them, there was no way I was putting my daughter in a car.
You never realized how loose you were in a car until you were tight.
Nope.
And I was the same way. Yeah. I because hooker harness, and I've been talking to Neil. I got, I'm gonna switch to hooker. I'm going to spend the long dollar when I get the new car out. It'll have hookers in it. But I ran Crows, the first set I had. Well, it was because I went to Bristol that first year, 2017, and I couldn't tighten the belts because of the way the seat was. Because it was the first time I'd ever ran a containment seat.
Yeah.
And what I would do is I would have them snug, and then I'd have to to tighten them and talk to LaJoy. And he's like, because the adjusters were like where the seat was, right? And talk to LaJoy.
Because all the old seats, the belts went over the outside, not through the seat.
Yeah. Well, even just the way I had it mounted, it was, they were clear of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, it would talk to LaJoy, and he's like, well, you could get the ones where they have up there, or you could get the ratchet. And I was like, well, and he's like, well, they have other options, that aren't quite as expensive. And the Crows were like $230. Mm-hmm. I put those things in, and the first time I went click, 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 click. Dude, the first race out, I realized that I wasn't just shoving myself in the seat with my left foot, and I'm like, okay, and
you don't move.
Game over. That was game over after that.
And then even after I got them, it was a couple of weeks before I figured out, hey, leave the bottom really loose, cinch your shoulders down because they're not ratchet.
Yeah.
And then when you pull that main belt down, it tightens those even more.
Yeah, I would get to the point. I actually would snug it just so that it wasn't like pulling them up here.
Yep.
And mind you, that was because my crotch strap wasn't where it was supposed to be.
Yep.
Okay, learn that lesson. But I would do that where I would just snug it, do that, pull them tight. Now I'm also one like you'll see me if you ever actually watch. If I ever post a full in car. Caution comes out, I'll yank my belts. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what I do. I'll always re-yank my belts and stuff. I will be in there, I can't move. And before we, if I see people starting to move, I'll redo it. But yeah, I never realized how loose I was in a race car until I got the containment seat and I got the ratchet belts. That combination just.
Yeah. And that crash at Hartford, ratchet belts, Hans. I bought my containment seat in 2021 when we couldn't get any containment seats.
Right.
There was none to be had. The only one I found in a warehouse was $1,650. It's that, all billet.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got the fanciest Kirky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so I'm in a good seat.
Yeah.
I'm in good belts, good head and neck, good helmet, good everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I still came out of it hurting.
You tried to move that wall though.
The wall did not hurt at all. The wall, I'm not even convinced I couldn't have drove it. I'm not convinced that the wall hurt the car at all.
Really?
What hurt the car was the other cars that hit it.
Yeah, that's true.
And the problem was I was praying somebody would hit me in the door instead of keep hitting me on the ends of the car and making it do 360s, It just spun and spun, and it was just not fun.
Well, that was if you watch top rows of me at Bristol, I tank slap the wall, and my my left arm comes off, and you actually see me kind of re-grab the wheel, and I'm just trying to hold it to stop me. I'm holding the brakes, holding the wheel, and I go down to the bottom. And you actually watched me do this, and it wasn't because I thought we were going through. I purposely, and you watch my helmet never moves. I didn't know who was going to get me in the door, but I didn't want to see it coming. I didn't want to tense up. And that was because I knew hey, if you were at Bristol in the A-main, thank you for not hitting me. But that was just straight up where I'm like, shit, like I'm going to catch it. Charles, I don't know what it costs to get the Crows recertified. I'll be honest with you. I never actually sent them out to them. And it's been so long that I don't know at this point, but I'm going to switch to Hooker. Neil's been in my chat. Hooker Harness has been in my chat, which means a lot more to me than people realize. So there's like $650.
I don't personally know on the Crows, but we've had some RJS recertified for a customer and a set of Simpsons recertified for a customer, and both of those were between $80 and $100.
Yeah. Was the RJS makes a ratchet or just regular?
RJS does make a ratchet.
Okay. Yeah. I have Race Quip is what's in dock.
Just so you're aware, everybody uses the same ratchet. There's one company that actually makes the ratchet that is certified.
Yeah. I believe you, but I'm curious with Hookers because I do know that looking at theirs was a little fancier.
This was last year.
Yeah. I'd have to, but the big thing, like with Hookers, the one that got me is the material that they use. Like they sew in pads that like their strips have rubber in them, so they don't move and stuff. Like there's some really nice stuff that they do that I really like. So although
I'm just talking about the actual fixtures, you know.
Well, it's the Race Quip ones are cheap because they're made overseas. You know, they're SFI certified. Like I'm not saying they're bad, but they are made overseas. The Crows, I don't know where they source stuff. Crow is an American company. I don't think they're making theirs overseas. But like the Hookers, you know, dude, they're not. They're made in America. And you know, they used to the big problem is I'm like, dude, I want the orange straps. He's like, well, we don't have orange, so we need to order a bunch of it to get it. So like you need to get people to order orange stuff. And I'm like, so like I'm hoping by the time I can afford to buy a set of those belts that they have orange because I need to reorder because I want orange belts. Like if we have all those colors. So yeah. I picked up some Crows and I want to get them recertified. Honestly, I just say to reach out to Crow. It's the easiest way. Like we could sit here and tell you what we think, but they're easy to deal with. I know that.
I can tell you my experience has been with everybody that I've dealt with. It's about half of new.
Yeah.
Real close.
Yeah.
You know, some are a little
especially
more,
the ratchet, just because the ratchet mechanism is more expensive. That's the expensive part is the ratchet stuff. So but yeah, just reach out to them. So favorite track that you have raced in a front wheel drive?
Bristol was fun. It was dirt, so it was, you know, we didn't have
the atmosphere was there, but I love you dirt guys. Dirt Bristol's not Bristol. So I understand. It's still fun. It's still Bristol.
Yep.
It can still definitely be.
So
I do understand where you're going with that.
I enjoyed the experience of being at Bristol, but actual racing on the racetrack, I gotta say, Onaway is probably my favorite in a front wheel drive.
Nice.
I mean, I enjoy Springport, but
Springport will always hold for me because it was the first place I ever turned laps.
Yeah.
So it'll always be special to me for that. It's a fun track.
And Kalamazoo is special to me, and it's my home track. It'll always be my home track. I won a NASCAR championship at Kalamazoo. You know, had some really good seasons at Kalamazoo, but actual all out, just the fun of driving on the racetrack. I gotta say, it's Onaway. It's just it was so challenging. I mean, that's the only. I've got good brakes on my car, and I lost my brakes at Onaway. I mean, I cooked them. Yeah. And you know, we've talked about this many times. I've got a V6 with
It's heavy. It's front heavy.
It's heavy. It's right front heavy.
Yep.
And it makes a bunch of torque, so it accelerates off the corner good. So I enjoy tracks that have a decent straightaway and a really slow corner.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can accelerate off.
Because I can accelerate. Yeah.
See, I like those tracks because I can usually set the car up to turn under somebody second half of the corner. Like that's for me.
I really enjoyed Onaway though, and I think it was more because of just the challenge of driving. There was so much brake. Gotta hit the right spot getting into the corner.
Yeah, but you break a car length late and you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed Onaway. That's probably my favorite.
All right. What would be, and this doesn't have to be a negative. Because, like, for me, I have no luck / my least favorite is Galesburg. And it's not because Galesburg is a bad place or, like it's not negative. It's that I have finished, I think, one race there and I blasted Jake Alexander to do it. Like I have had zero luck. We totaled out 2 cars in one corner at Galesburg. I have had zero luck. So Galesburg is my zero luck / least favorite. So what would be your, I don't care necessarily if I ever go back because I don't have luck. Whole track. Because obviously Super Shoe, no luck. We're not counting Super Shoe because Kalamazoo, we keep going back. So we can't count that like event. I'm talking track that just, things just don't work for you there.
I mean, at this point, it's got to be Bristol. Unfortunately.
I get it. 0 for 1.
Bristol dirt.
Yep.
Which will never happen again, and I don't need to worry about ever doing it again. But I just, that it isn't so much just that I had terrible luck when I went there. It was just what it did to the rest of the season.
Yeah.
It was like,
it really set you up for failure.
Carried on for the whole season, and it all started at Bristol.
Danny says Northern Michigan Speedway is a blast and my favorite non-home track. So, yeah.
I did not have any luck at Northern Michigan, but it's definitely not a.
I don't think I've ever been any farther north than Berlin or Owasso, whichever one is higher. Yeah. So I haven't even watched up there. My brother-in-law keeps wanting me to go to Onaway, so I'm going to try to see, because Dock is legal for their enduro. So I'm going to try to see if I could. I'm not July 6th. I don't want to. I would have to, because Ben's coming in the 3rd, which I would talk to you. I'm going to see maybe we can bring Ben over here just to hang out at the dyno or something. So, but he's coming in the 3rd. I'm not doing anything the 3rd with him coming in. The 4th, I'm going to try. We're going to do some freedom stuff. If you know anybody with some land that'll let us make things go boom, let me know, because we've got some fun stuff to do that with. But then like Kazoo's racing the 4th and stuff like that. The 5th is Corrigan Oil Spartan. Yep. And then the 6th, I kind of have a plan. I don't want to talk about it quite yet. I'll tell you off air. The 6th, I'm trying to organize something. But the 6th is like we could go to Springport. There's a few other events, things going on. If we go up to Onaway, we'd kind of have to give up Friday night and stuff like that. Travel. So like, I'd kind of like to keep as much. Yeah. We screwed Ben out of race last year just because of what's happening outside right now, all the rain. Yep. So I really want to try to maximize with him coming all the way from Australia. So that'll be
the other reason. I mean, the other good thing about Onaway is my wife has family up there.
Oh, okay.
30 minutes from the track. So we go up early. We spend time with family.
It's an event kind of thing.
We're not in a hotel, and it's just it was just the whole thing. But I just, even when I raced there in my street stock and in the enduro stuff, I just enjoyed it. Yeah, it's just a fun race.
Yeah, track. I'm gonna make it up there eventually, and maybe this year will be it with Doc. We might make it up there.
They're really scaling back. They used to run every week, and now they're.
Well, John was actually planning on like this season. He was going to go run up there because like last year or year before, he actually went up because they were running like 6 races, and he's like, they're running like every 3 weeks, right? And he went up there, and he was B and C main with his truck. He was actually good, and I think he finished like 5th or 6th in points with like 2 races, right? Like he was doing well, and he'd planned on he's going to run the full season. Like they were going to put the camper in the truck, tow the trailer up there, and when they would every month they'd go up for that. Well, then they're like, all right, we're going to run 2 races, and he's like, well, so he decided not to. But this is one he's going to go up for that event. So, and
it's a little bit shorter drive from your area too.
Well, he's Battle Creek
here, but so. Even still,
because you kind of got to go over and up. So an extra
to the middle of the
45
state is
minutes
a little bit shorter.
Charlotte would be even straighter up. Yeah. So, my fun one, my track that I really love is Shady Bowl. Shady Bowl is like M40 but bigger. It has a literal creek running through the middle of it. Oh, awesome. Like it's you go downhill into 1, uphill out of 2, downhill into 3, and uphill out of 4. But it's because M40 you kind of do that. Yeah. But you kind of go into 1 and it's more like the front stretch is slightly higher. You kind of dip, but then you come out, right? And you go down and then back up with 4. Shady Bowl is like if you went with M40 even more.
Okay.
Like you legitimately go downhill into 1, you come up out of 2 and go down into 3, and it's tricky.
Sounds fun.
Oh, dude, it's a blast. Now, Dad and I are never allowed to race that track together again, though, because Dad gets short end of the stick every time. He totaled out. The first time we both ran there together. The first time I ever ran there. I was running 5th. He was running 6th in the craziest VCTS feature I've ever been in. They rained out and snowed out like 3 weeks in a row, like 3 events. So Shady Bowl is the first event, like 5 weeks into what should have been the season. People were antsy. So we but he crossed the start finish line, guy hooked him. And I mean, he was still full throttle and he hit the wall 10 foot past the start finish line right in front of my aunt. And he actually just posted the picture of that whole front of his car. So the right front wheel, the center line of the right front wheel was farther back from the A pillar, where the A pillar is supposed to come down. It was like 4 inches into that, right? It was first time Dad ever wore his head and neck. First time Dad ever raced with his head and neck. VCTS made it mandatory. He may have survived that wreck. Guarantee you he wouldn't be walking the same way. Like he wouldn't be the same guy if he hadn't been wearing his head and neck that night.
Yeah.
But I didn't even know. Like the red flag. You know, I come around and I'm like, oh, and then I see Dad on the front stretch. And the next time was when the first time Michael Waltrip raced with us, and things were going great. Dad was running in the B main, and Dad there's a bump at the very bottom of like 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. You catch it and it'll shoot you up half a groove. He hit that. He came up, and the guy outside him broke an axle and came in at the same time, and they just poop. And Dad landed and went and bow, hit the wall there too. So those are the 2 times Dad and I tried to race. Dad's raced Shady Bowl by himself, ran well. He's finished like every race. He won the B main, almost won another B main. Like he's ran really well down there. We tried to race there together.
Doesn't work.
Bad things happen. So we're not allowed to do that. Yeah. Okay. So Marvin says Birch Run is the northernmost track that I would have ran. I believe you. You know, because you got, man, I don't know where, but you know, Berlin on this side of the state, Owasso in the middle, and Birch Run on the other side.
Birch Run is just a little bit north of Owasso.
Yeah. One's east, one's middle, one's west. So
I didn't have any luck there last year.
I ran there twice. The first time I put it on them, that started my win streak in 2014. That started all the accusations of how bad I was cheating in the traveling series.
Still are.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got, you know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't eating, you know, all the way to Bristol, Tennessee. But then the next time I went back, I ran a different gear, but the problem was that was with the timing I was telling you with the ECU master, it was reading the wrong teeth, and we were 15 degrees advanced on timing. And so running second gear, it would be fast, but then it'd start to overheat after 4 or 5 laps. And we had a double header Dixie Owasso, and I had the wrong tranny in for those. And so like I could be quick, but then I'd have to pull off. So yeah, that was not a great weekend for me the second time we went. So I held the track record for a while because the next year we went back, it didn't get broken, but then eventually one of the other guys kicked the shit out of it. So yeah.
It's a fun track.
What's a track that you would like to race in a front wheel drive that you haven't been able to? Like, and I mean, we can talk like dream tracks, but they're like attainable. Because like we'd all love to run Daytona, you know, kind of thing. But I would once. I'd like to practice it.
I don't think I would like to do it in a front wheel drive. I would want.
Oh, I would. I would.
I mean, I would.
I'd do it once. I'd do one practice at least.
You let me put some of them other parts on my car that aren't legal for any of the series that we run, and I would enjoy it.
I would be more worried about.
If I could show up with 400 horsepower, you know, that would be
I'd settle for what I got, but I would like to know that the hubs are going to stay on the thing because I was at a half-mile track.
I don't
recently.
have those concerns.
Yeah, I gotta do some CAD work, and I won't after a minute. But
I think North Wilkesboro.
Yeah, I kind of wish I'd have had a car together for that one too.
Yeah, I think that's one.
The hope is still there. I honestly, I think we could get back to North Wilkesboro. I think once the repave is done and everything like that, I think we could get back to it. So
I think it'll happen.
Yeah.
But that's one that, you know, I mean, I'm not planning on racing beyond this season.
Okay.
But that also depends on if I actually race this season.
If the car's done for this season, sure, but if not, next year sounds like a good year, right?
Yeah. I really wanted to be done racing. Honestly, I sold my car in 2017. Was retired and helping my son to do what he wanted to do, and I enjoyed it. And then 2021, after I lost my son, I decided to race his car for him, and I just kind of been stuck in it since.
Yeah.
And I actually told my wife and my daughter I didn't want to race this year. I'm like, after I ruined my car and I have to build a whole new one, I'm like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And neither one of them would let that happen. And well, neither one of them would let it happen, but I also have 3 sponsors that are like, nope, we don't care what you do.
Yeah.
We don't care how much you race.
Yeah. Here's
some money, build a car, and I'm like, I really don't want to build a car, but I will. So I am, and it's, well, you've seen it.
I seen it.
It's got a ways to go.
You are, in all seriousness, we are pretty close to the same done. My new one's pretty close to the same.
I am probably about 5 or 6 hours of fab and welding away from blasting and painting the chassis.
I really want to blast and paint mine. I take that back. I really want to blast all of the extra weight, like all the seam sealer and all of that off. Honestly, I don't know, because mine, we talked about the major things like the main cage and everything. And like my fuel cells mounted and batteries mounted, seats mounted, the steering was until I had to take it off my car to put it on Pete's, and then
mine is all done. I took it out for
all my mounts and everything are still there. I just need to get another unit to put in it. Is because I took it out to put it in Pete's so that Ben could race it, and then we didn't. But I have all that major fab done, but like mine from this point forward is a lot of like the body and the switches and the gauges and like all the little stuff. But yeah, it's now the problem is that I know exactly how I want to do it, and
it's time consuming.
It's very time consuming because
mine, I'm using, well, you've seen my new dash.
Yep.
So that'll take care of my gauges. There won't be any other gauges in the car. And I actually reused my switch panel and all my switches and most of the wiring out of my old car.
Yeah.
So most of that stuff will go pretty quick. Where I'm at right now is there's 0 suspension in my car.
Yeah.
There's no control arms.
Yeah.
There's no suspension whatsoever. I've got to go through all that and get that done. And then I've got to get engine and transmission in it so it has weight, so it sits at ride height.
Yeah.
So I can get all that stuff figured out before I can even start building the body.
Yeah. Well, that's for mine. The rear suspension, aside from the struts, because it just has some placeholders, the rear suspension is basically done because mine's just easy. Mine's the Heims.
Yeah.
The front, it currently has the K-member, lower control arm, steering rack, all of that out of Lucy, which I've got some braces and stuff on the K-member. So like I'm going to redo that. Good bushings and stuff in the arms. But like the goal is to get Lucy back out too. So like I don't know if I'm going to take that out, do new for the new car, or like freshen that and build new for Lucy. But then like the knuckles and all that, we actually put those in Dad's car.
See, and I don't. So I have control arms and struts and springs and all of that stuff, but I don't have one knuckle. I am short 4 knuckles for my car currently. I have a donor car that I'm probably going to tear apart and get the fronts out of, but rears I don't have any.
Yeah.
So I've still got to source those. Haven't even looked into it yet, but
that was the fun one for me with Earl and I parting the way we were. He's had such a stockpile. He's like, all right, so here, because we probably got 10 hours into the two of us just sitting there sorting through stuff of like, all right, I want this, I want that, I don't want. And so I could have had a lot more knuckles, but I was like, if I break that many, man, I know where there's more are. So, I have a few of those, but like the big one for me is the motor. I got to put it together. I don't have any, I do have the transmissions and stuff, but like I still have to make the mount. My motor mount and tranny mount that was in Lucy was in Dad's car at Bristol. They're bent as shit now. So,
well, my engine is on the dyno. Well, you've seen that.
We
actually ran it today.
We ran it.
Yeah.
Readings were a little funny.
Yeah. the
dyno graphs aren't supposed to look like cursive.
we made a change to the water supply today, and it didn't like it.
Yeah,
but
it's a pretty neat setup we got back there.
Yeah,
so
it works really nice.
Yeah,
I'm just that's like my happy place. If I can just spend, if I could spend all day in there.
Listen, brother, if you think that
the problem,
I'm not going to tell anybody I win the lottery, but there will be noises and things that you'll be able to tell because we'll have a building where I've got one of those next to one in the ground. And
that is absolutely my happy place. But to be honest with you, there ain't no money made in there.
No,
that's where
that's your R&D center.
That's the R&D.
That's
where
we
do all of our testing and figure out what works for us and what we feel comfortable giving to somebody else. You know, and tell them it works well.
But that's where that's why I want to do the testing I want to do on that, just because I think as you know, so much faster and quicker to swap stuff around on there. But I've said it since I started frontal discussion that that's the kind of stuff I really want to be able to do is that kind of R&D and dispel myths, right? And that's just such a big one for me is being able to. I'll be honest with you. One of the tests I want to do is, we keep having I keep seeing it. Guys who fundamentally do not understand what a thermostat does in a cooling system, and I want to have an engine on a dyno. And I'm going to skip your cooling tower, and I'm going to run a neon radiator with fans, and I want to show solid state. Here, we get it to temp. We're going to run it here. This is what it does with a thermostat, without a thermostat. Here's its opening and closing. I am to the point I want to either get one machined out of something clear or mold it or something so you can physically watch it open and close and see what it does. The thoughts there, but the problem is the opacity of the clear stuff. That might be a resin printer setup, and I don't have that. So it's possible, but even my thought too is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a neon thermostat setup. I could see about having an inline one that would be, so there are options, right? But that's the kind of stuff that I have wanted to do since we started this.
It's the same thing for me. When I first started racing these V6 engines, we ran, we'd got the thermostat and just leave it in there kind of as a restrictor, and we did it to keep them cool. And if we'd only known then, we just needed a bigger radiator, because nowadays we run thermostats and everything. We run a thermostat. I have a thermostat in my car. I have a thermostat in my daughter's car. I run a thermostat and everything.
The biggest thing with thermostats is that once they open, they're just a restriction. But people, and I'm not going to name names, but there's one dude in particular who likes to call people stupid because you don't even understand what's going on. Thermostats open when you hit a certain temperature, and then they close when they drop to a certain temperature. And so they're an emissions device, so that your engine gets hot, so you don't have emissions. And there's nothing wrong with heating your engine up, but for so many people, that restriction of having that thermostat waiting for it to open up, well, they've also got shitty cooling systems. And so if they don't know what they're doing, it's easier to just not let that heat build up. But that's the whole people don't understand.
And what happened to me was we'd always ran a gutted thermostat as a restrictor, and it's always worked. Well, then 2016, I redid the nose of the car and I put a big radiator in. And I'd heat it up to 160, 170 degrees in the staging lanes. I go out on the racetrack. By the time I get to the backstretch, I'm 120. And I'm like, what the heck? So that's when we ended up, Ben.
And that's where you want the thermostat, because you want it to close so you do get hot.
I want enough temperature. There's, and with the tuning that we do and so on, we can tune around that, and it'll still make power no matter what water temp we're
hard on parts though. 120 degrees is hard on parts.
And that's what we're more worried about, is making sure that everything is heated up and expanded like it's supposed to be, and everything's good to go. Just like you and I made a pull on that dyno in there. I'm like, I'm waiting for the water temp to come up. I'm not gonna whack it when it's 100 degrees.
Cold start rod check.
So, same thing. We ran my daughter's car on the chassis dyno.
I made a couple clips, and the goal was to try to like play them for you guys. Like, yeah, we can do this, but trying to get them off my phone onto the computer without a transfer device was problematic. So, well, that's the big one is I've seen where guys with the thermostats where it's like, oh, if you don't have one, the car will automatically overheat, blah 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 blah, and it's like, first off, like I took my car, I run a V8 radiator. We found by sheer luck, I had this individual throttle body setup, had its own custom radiator. We were going to look at getting a spare because it's shorter, right? Yeah. $635. And we're like, guess what? No, thank you. Right. Like we're not afraid. Earl and I were not afraid to spend money for good reason. That's not a good reason. Right. Well, just by sheer happenstance, he looked up one day and one of the shelves up top and it said radiator, he pulls it down and it's one of the like Ford style. So like the inlets and outlets and, whatever. Right. And we get looking at it and it's like 6 inches bigger and 3 inches bigger and like twice as it's bigger, but it's the smallest like V8 style or whatever, and it's like, he looks up the price, it's like $160. And we're like, well, the motor mount that I run, the tranny mount, which you can get at the front wheel drive shop, I don't need any of the front motor mount stuff. And it's one where it's like, if all I gotta do is hang the radiator up here, well, shit, I can just hang the radiator. So I cut the stock support. We could drop it the extra few inches that we need. I run a 60 PSI cap or like a 50 PSI cap on it because, it's higher. I put that in and went out, and my car will not go above 180. And went down to Florida there a couple seasons ago, and it's like 85 down there. Like, it's hot. And I'm turning that motor harder than I've ever turned it. I mean, I was literally spinning 87 to 91. Like, we're twisting the piss out of it. If it's ever going to overheat, it's Florida in the middle of the day spinning $9,000, right? Yep. Well, I was having an issue. It was some caps. It was some thermostat housings. It wouldn't hold pressure. You'd get to about 5 PSI, and then it wouldn't hold pressure. And I would lose, in a standard water bottle, I'd lose this much water out of it, right? 170 degrees, spinning $9,000 with no pressure in the system, right?
Yep.
But I got guys that argue with me on the internet that if you don't run a thermostat, it'll automatically overheat. It'll destroy everything and it's that. And I'm like, you don't understand what these things do.
Right.
So being able to have the testing, be able to have the science. Yep. So yeah, Dan and I are going to work together on some stuff. Not right away because we got to get some adapter stuff to put a neon motor on it. But yeah, I'm glad I came over here today, Dan. This is a nice setup. What's been the favorite car that you've raced across all of them?
Probably the original Grand Am.
Yeah.
The first Grand Am that I built, which was actually the very first front wheel drive that I built. And I initially built it for my son to race in 2014.
Gotcha.
I built it the winter of I got it in the fall of 2013, worked on it through the winter to race it the 2014 season. And the intention was my son to drive it. I had no interest in driving a front wheel drive car. And he started having some trouble in school, not getting good grades and whatever. And I'm like, oh, you don't get to race unless you get your grades around. And so I went to the racetrack and I drove it. And I don't know, I was immediately hooked on it. Yeah. I was like, it's so different. I raced rear wheel drive cars forever.
Yeah.
And being able to sail it off in the corner, let it be loose, and then just stand on the throttle to correct itself. Yeah. That just fit me. It works on my driving style. And then, oh, by the way, it's got fuel injection and I can tune it.
Yeah.
So
I can play with this.
Right.
And one of the things I fell in love with the front wheel drives is the experimentation. There's no books.
Yeah.
I can't go get a Steve Smith late model book, Steve Smith, and how many things have you done that somebody's been like, that'll never work?
Oh.
And you're like, oh yeah, okay.
That's happened in a lot more than just race cars. But
being called a liar when you say that you're running a certain cross amount.
Oh, right. Right. Or, literally running a completely stock engine and everybody's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you just seen one run today. I told you exactly what it's got in it.
I seen 2 sets of dyno numbers. Yeah. I'd take one over the other.
Yeah.
But one is much more stock than the other.
Yep.
One is what I would expect out of a stock V6.
Yeah.
So
but it runs good. It's But that's part of the reason that we run 60-degree V6s.
Yeah.
Is because nobody else builds them.
Yeah.
You know, Wide Open Throttles Technologies. There's one other guy that I guess markets some stuff for him if you can actually get anything from him. But you know, it's kind of a niche thing. And it's just like you said, there's no book. You can't just go look up, oh well, this is what works in a 3.4 or this is what works in the 3.5. And you know, it's stuff that we figure out as we're going.
Yeah.
And we figure out how to make more horsepower and oh well, we need to try and find a different way to do this and a different way to do that. And you know, the Mega Squirt stuff, there really wasn't a guidebook. This is how you hook it up and make it work on it. It's a 60-degree V6. And now we're kind of going through the same thing because we're going to the MS3X.
Yeah.
And sequential fuel injection, sequential spark.
Yep.
So not only are we trying to navigate that part of it, but at the same time, we're trying to use the factory trigger wheel.
Yeah.
Right now, we use an external trigger wheel hooked on the.
What is the factory trigger pattern?
60-2.
Okay. Shit, that ain't that bad.
Yeah. So that's, you know, it's figuring that stuff out, learning it as we go. Is just, it really is. You know, the kind of the driving force of what we do. We just want to figure out how to make it better and how to make it go faster and make more horsepower. And, you know, then I'll go to the racetrack and not be able to make my car turn. And you know, we'll run top 5 somewhere.
Well, that's been a fun one for me with, you know, like the Neon's much more sorted. You know, there actually technically is a book for Neons, a high performance manual for Neon. It don't say shit. Like it was written in like 96, right? But like I've been doing some stuff with Neons that like it's a lot of fun for me where when people do that whole like, oh, you can't do that, it's not available. Like there's some of that stuff that's just so much fun to be able to walk away and be like, yeah, nope, definitely couldn't do that. And yeah, I honestly, I don't really like, I know some people running the V6 stuff, but it's like Scott, you know, where he's got a Grand Prix and it's just what's in the Grand Prix. Like they're not doing, because like that's something that, you know, you and I've talked about a few of the different combinations that you've ran and stuff. And like some are pretty, like I'd never imagined you could put some of that stuff together. Like it makes sense to me, you know, like it's a V6, it's a 60-degree V6. Like it makes sense that they wouldn't change the architecture that much, but at the same time, like it's kind of neat what they did have to change.
The LZ engine, the newer stuff that we're using now.
Yeah.
Nothing interchanges with the old engine.
Right.
There's no crossover between the new and the old. But you know, like for example, 2015, we were running, you know, stock stuff, junk. You know, I'm running a junkyard 3.5 liter engine out of an 06 G6. You know, and well, we stuck a camshaft in it, and I decided that I was going to put thinner head gaskets in it. And
yeah.
I decided what I wanted to put in it, and Ben said, "Ooh, I don't know. You know, I think that might hit." Well, I ran 90% of the season on that and never had a single issue, and the engine made decent power. But then we decided, well, we need to try and turn it a little higher RPM. So I changed the gears and made it a lap and a half around there, and the piston must have smacked the head and broke everything because, you know, it was a little too tight, just like he told me it was. But you know, keeping it under 6,000, it was never an issue. But as soon as we turned it over 65, it didn't work out. But.
Yeah, we learned that with JE pistons, that they're designed with stock deck height. And if you take anything off, 10,000ths off, if you shave the head, you run an interference, you know. Right. And that was, so 2014, when we first doing the touring stuff, we started trying with some 2.4 stuff, immediately made a gob of power, but didn't have the right stuff we needed in the bottom ends, and then switched to the 2 liters, and we were building them, but we were buying brand new NOS blocks and putting stock bore JEs in them. They were too tight. And if we'd have kept them under 6,000, just drove them like normally, we'd have been fine. Yeah. But when we started trying to twist them 76, 78, we were running into that where the expansion was hitting cylinder walls and they'd hit the heads. And, you know, and we just slowly figured out, I know a lot more now than I did then. So we're like, well, JE makes a stock bore piston. This is a stock bore, you know, like it'll work. then we go to the machine shop, and they're like they straight up told us that they had to hone it out 18 thousandths to make the stock bore. And you contact JE, and they're like, well, yeah, it's because it should be old and worn out. And we're like, how worn out does it got? You know, this is so I want to show you. This is the trigger pattern for first gen Neon, by the way.
Okay.
Wow. Like, yeah. Now I'm gonna put this up on screen for you guys so you guys can see it too. If you know what you're looking at for trigger patterns, this is the factory crank trigger wheel for a Dodge Neon. Put us down here in the corner. There we go. We're down here in the corner. This is a factory pattern. And it's literally like 60, 30, 30, 30, 120, 30. Like, it's so goofy. And that's why I was saying, like, you know, I'm trying to see these two teeth, right? That are 180 out, but it could see two sets of those. Right. And that was why, like, it was having so many problems, right? And
I would literally be cutting some teeth off.
It is cast into the crank.
Grind it.
Well, the second option is, so that's the first gen pattern, right?
Okay.
This is the SRT4 pattern.
Oh yeah, that's good.
That's
usable.
What they're not showing is that this is 18-2, 18-2. So it's 18-2 missing, 18-2 full. So it's you know, one big, one missing.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually like all the Hemis use this crank pattern. The SRT4s use this crank pattern. The 03 up second gen Neons use this pattern.
Plenty of guys using that.
Yes.
Using aftermarket stuff.
Holly will run straight off for this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why this is actually a supported pattern in the ECU Master. It still doesn't want to start for me. It's still a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But it's 18-2, 18-2, and these bolt on.
Okay.
And so you could theoretically make a different trigger wheel in whatever pattern, but 18-2, 18-2 is a good pattern.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's straight up. This is what now Mega Squirt can read this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, ECU Master cannot. So those of you that are watching, yeah, that's what. Yeah, someone likes math with that wheel. It says, yeah, the Chrysler engineers. Pete says, you guys not paying attention to your pin height? Well, I wasn't in 2014, bud. There was a lot that I wasn't paying attention to in 2014. Yeah. We switched to off-the-shelf Wiseco's. We had the blocks machined for them, and I ran that motor for 2.5 seasons after that.
Yep, 2015 is when I...
And that motor went into another car. Dad borrowed it for a while. Then Camille was running it for a while. That motor ended up all the way in Doug Peters' car a year ago, 2 years ago. Same motor that I built in 2014. And we finally took it apart. And it was still running good. We pulled it out to give Doug his motor, but we pulled it out, and when we just tore it apart because it had been 8 years, and it needed some work, but it was still could have been run.
I told you, the engine that's in my daughter's car, is the engine that I built in 2016 that I won the championship with, and I raced it 2 seasons. Then Brock Sweeter raced it 2 seasons.
Yep.
Then he sold it to Billy Yates. They ran it a season.
Yep.
Then the French boys ended up with it, ran it a season or 2, and then I ended up with it back. And we're still running it.
Yeah. So, Pete, we've learned. Okay.
Yeah.
Pete, are you on your honeymoon? He got married last week.
Oh.
So.
Congrats.
Yeah. Yeah. It was quite a swing for Pete. Went and ran Bristol. Almost won the B main. Finished second. Didn't have quite as good luck in the A main. Better luck than me. You know, he didn't lead. I do have that on Pete. I led the A main. He led the B main. I led the A main. Okay. You know, not officially on paper because
you didn't actually cross the start finish line.
I was second that lap, so not officially. But you know, I do have slightly. I think
luckily there's video.
Pete might have ran. Yeah, there's a lot of it too, and pictures. Pete might have. I don't know. Pete might have got a faster lap time than I did. I'll straight up give it to him. I think he went at 18.9 or something like that. Like I think he got a faster lap time. I went at 18.8 a couple years ago. So like I did go a little, you know, but then Pete's grandma passed away, and then Pete got married, all within like 2 weeks. So Pete had himself quite an adventure there for a minute. So Pete's super excited for Ben to come hang out. Ben's excited to hang out with Pete. So we all hung out trying to get his car ready.
I remember when you
did
that on a live, I think.
Yeah, because there's a video of me eating shit. I tripped carrying something, and you watch me just go, wham! And Pete walks over to the camera and was like, hey! Y'all see that?
Yeah.
He had to make sure that we could see it on camera. Ironically, it was both people losing rear wheels that took us out. Yeah. I think it was Tapman that lost Aaron Tapman that lost a rear wheel that got Pete, and well, I know who it was that lost the wheel that got me. So yeah. Yeah.
Yep. That was not a good day for
Neon. Oh, no, he says I got him. He got me on time. I think I went a 1908. I went a 05. So yeah. I went a 07, 05, 07. I was consistent. Practice qualifying feature. Yeah. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want any sort of lecture or pep talk. I knew going down to Bristol, one of two things was happening. I was driving to victory lane, or they were towing me back. There was no in between. And it wasn't I refuse for anything else. It was like, this is, especially after practice and after qualifying, where I hadn't got good laps. We were P3, P4. Holy shit. This car is fast. Mm-hmm. We are winning this thing, or the wheels are coming off. Something bad is about to happen.
Coming off.
Yeah. And listen, if y'all ever want to feel all the emotions at the same time, try leading Bristol with that thought of we're winning or breaking, and going, we're winning, and then breaking. Yeah. So, do I need a car ready for Ben? Right now, I don't have one for me. We can talk about it, Pete. You don't have to have one ready for Ben. I think Ben would like to race the car we worked on just because we didn't get to. However, man, Ben is he's here for a good time, not a long time. So I'm going to try to stuff him in every car I can, if nothing else than just for a practice session. However, I'm going to be at other people's mercies because I'm going to have Doc ready. I got to swap the tranny. I blew the gears out the side of the transfer gears out the side.
You said Lucy wasn't very far away.
I mean, I have all the parts for it, but I don't have a good motor for it. And the problem with Lucy, you were talking about how the car was bent.
Yeah.
Lucy, way back, I got wrecked a couple weeks before Bristol at Kazoo, drove through, and it bent the left front frame rail up. We chopped it off, redid the front end. I had a 1/2-inch spacer on the front K member. It's kind of like the Cavies and that, where they have the front is bolt. Mm-hmm. I had a 1/2-inch spacer for the K. The axle was touching the K member because the K member was up. Oh. So spaced it down, got it level, and we're up to over 1 inch of spacer down there at the bottom of that K member. It's just, it keeps bending up, and that was the deal with me in 22. Was I would get the car good. I'd get one night, maybe two out of it, and then it would just tweak, and then it'd be garbage. And so I was constantly fighting it. And so
it's got some fab work.
So BJ's Body Shop down Honius's we were gonna try to get it. I was gonna try to have Lucy ready for Bristol, until Dad blew his shoulder out, offered me his car. They're going to help me out. We're going to try to pull that back down, and then I'm going to brace it a little bit so it won't keep coming up. I get that done, and realistically, it should go back together because the doors are still on it. All the tin on the interior is still all together. I haven't modified it. The front end, the fenders, and the front bumper are all still attached. I got to find the front bumper, the metal behind it. So it could all go back together, and then just redo the suspension stuff. It would be just putting it back together, but I got to get the left front frame rail, and then I got to figure a motor out. So the goal is to build a motor for Lucy and build a motor for the new car. Lucy will basically get its old motor back together. I got to figure out camshaft situation because I now have 3 instead of 2 camshafts because one's stubby piece. So I'll try to, I'm going to try to. It's just I don't think I'll be able to pull it off before Ben gets back. So I'll have Doc. I can guarantee Doc will be ready, and we'll have a car I can make sure Ben is able to race and turn some laps in. But past that, I'll be at the mercy of other people. So yeah, but it's one like Ben can wheel, at least that I've seen, and so like I have belief that people will let him at least practice the car and stuff like that. And I want to try to get him in at a few different tracks. I want to take him out to Springport and let him race Spartan and some stuff like that. So we'll get him racing in Doc and we'll go from there. So
good.
But yeah, Pete says I'll see what I can pull off and I'll put an engine together that you should like. So just a stock one because that's all Pete does, which is fine. It works. Pete wins with a stock motor. So he got that 8 series power. So yeah, Honda stuff. So as far as talking shit goes, me and Pete rank right up there. We're talking shit to each other. So I even told him because I interviewed Pete for the Horsepower Happening segment that we do. Yeah. And I literally was like, man, Pete, because we watched the B main from Victory Lane, like up top. I refused to walk up to Victory Lane until I earned it. Well, I paid for it because I sponsored the B main. So I earned that one, right? But I was telling Pete, I was like, man, I was watching that and I wanted you to win. Like, I like you, Pete. I wanted you to win. However, I was happy when you finished second. That way you didn't have winning and driving to Bristol Victory Lane on me. And like, I don't want to be a dick because like I would have happily cheered, clapped, congratulated, 100%.
Would have been bummed out.
100%. But the problem is for the rest of my life or the rest of Pete's life or the rest of Pete's bloodline, I don't know if him and Mary have planned on having kids and he's going to make sure that they know that he beat Todd Metz at Bristol and he's got the Bristol trophy that Todd doesn't have, So like, I didn't want Pete to be able to hang that over my head, but I wanted Pete to do really well. So I was super happy Pete finished second, transferred to the A, and I was pulling really hard for him to do really well there too. So after I was watching from the infield. So yeah, Mary says, don't be talking about her husband like that. Hey, Mary, I remembered you, okay? Someone else didn't. If you haven't listened to the interview, you probably should, okay? I'm just saying, I remembered you. Mary joined our group, the subscriber group, so she could talk shit for Pete sometimes. So
all right.
I like him. I like Mary, but it's late. I'm kind of tired. I'm not gonna lie.
But I don't have a 2-hour drive home.
It's only about an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I'll be all right once I get driving. It's sitting here. It's nice. It's kind of quiet. Yeah.
Comfortable.
It's comfortable. Yeah. I got that big loud ass van to drive home. That keeps me awake. So yeah.
What time is it?
11:20.
Yeah, I'll probably still go back to work. Do something. Well, I definitely have to tear down everything I got to set up on the dyno right now. So
hey, we got about a 25-second video out of that. So I do appreciate you having that set up. It's one where this is something that I want to keep doing is going to shops, not necessarily shops, but like race shops. This is both. It just worked out that I needed to bring your stuff over. So the plan is to do this in the future from, shops and stuff. So if you are close to me, and I mean, I'm talking, well, like I say, you're about an hour 15 from my house. Like, I don't mind that, right? Let me know. Maybe we can do this from your place. Okay. If you're like, man, I live in Tennessee. You missed your chance. I was already there. Okay. But yeah, this has been fun. And we're going to work on it. Next time we won't talk for 3 hours because this is the first time I've been over here.
Yeah.
I've drove past like twice because we go over to wherever the big town over here that a lot of people go to is.
M40 or South Haven?
South Haven.
Okay.
I've been over South Haven a couple times. But yeah, I've never stopped in, never seen the place. So we toured the place, talked a bunch, seen the dyno. We ran both of them, had some fun. So yeah, we'll be back at some point and maybe we'll set up and we'll actually do because I talked about this with Tyler and he was for it, but it was one of those time things. Maybe what we'll do is we'll try to get come over here and like here's what you need to know about taking your car to a dyno.
Yeah, we
could do that. Like, here's the things you want to check, and here's how a lot of guys haven't been on the dyno. So here's what to expect, and we can show that whole process. So
yeah, we can actually line something up
Yeah.
Go through the whole process, bring it in, just tie it down.
Yeah, tie it down. Maybe we'll do show a tune or something like that. So, Pieces, it's only 10 hours to my house. Get your ass over here. Hey, I think your parents still live closer to me, right? You can swing over this way. So, 10 hours is a little far to drive. That's a third of the way to California. So, which that track would be a lot of fun. Madera, that's one that I can't wait to actually race that track.
How big is it?
So it's like, fuck, how big is Madera? The cool part about Madera is that it because it's California, there's no frost, there's no heave, so that track is smooth. It's nice, right? It's asphalt without a bunch of cracks in it,
right?
Like it's crazy, right?
Didn't know there was such a thing.
I know. Like it was one. The cool part for me was when I got on that track.
When I was in California, I don't think I ever seen a road because they were all covered up by cars.
It was busy. I'm not gonna lie, it was busy.
Yeah, I couldn't get out of California fast enough.
I've been there a few times, and I'll be honest, like when I go out for MPMC, it was in like LA.
Yeah.
You know, it was in Anaheim, right? Yeah. Flow into LAX, gave myself enough time to get to the hotel, no big deal kind of stuff. Holy fucking traffic at all hours. Like it was nuts, but I will give them this, right? You've driven 94, right? Fuck you, get out of my way. Fuck you, get out of my way. Fuck you, get out of my way, right? You're slowing me down. You're slowing me down. You're slowing me down. So everybody's tailgating the shit out of everybody. This car is like, oh, hell, that semi is running me off the road. And so they back up and then it accordions and there's massive wrecks and nobody goes anywhere. It is 7 lanes through LA.
Continuously moving.
Continuously, because everybody's like, hey, we're all going the same direction.
The thing I couldn't get used to is the motorcycles going in between us.
Yeah. Yeah.
There
was actually a ton of those, but for me, it was just one of literally everybody's leaving 4 to 5 car gap. And if this car has to slow down, there's enough room and then they stretch back out. Like we didn't slow down.
Yeah.
One end of LA to the other. And I mean, I literally went 2.5 hours from Anaheim to the other side of LA to go visit, you know, another guy from out there before I went back to the hotel. And it literally like 7 lanes, 6 lanes, 5 lanes. Everybody's like, hey man, we'll get there. Like, it's cool. Like you and me, brother, we're in this together.
Right.
That's what I was unaccustomed to. Like nobody's tailgating. People are using turn signals and like,
and it just keeps moving.
But
for me, it was just too much of it.
100%. I will say this, like I thought I've been to big cities and then I went to LA. Oh, yeah. I drove through 2.5 hours from one side of LA to the other. I'm doing 65. Like it wasn't like we were doing 30 mile an hour on side streets. I'm on major highways, right? 2.5 hours. I drove through a county. Right. I started outside of LA County, through LA County, to the other side of LA County. Fuck, like, good God. Now, the other thing is though, I could have walked to some of the best restaurants I've ever been to. Like it's you know, how big is Madera Speedway? But Madera, the cool part is they let me on the track to, I got to take a 3rd mile. So it's a 3rd mile. But I got to take Carl Fredrickson out in the rental Challenger, and it's progressively banked. So the bottom groove is almost flat, but the outside groove is probably 8-9 degrees. And so you like, because I was talking to, names escape me right this minute. The guy who Kenny Shepard runs the place. Well, he used to run like the ARCA East or West Series, something like that. Like he used to race. Okay. He's raced against NASCAR guys. Okay. And he was telling me that the one ARCA race or ARCA West race or whatever, they went like 110 laps, essentially 3 wide, because the guy on the bottom, shortest path, car hooked. Guy in the middle, progressively banked. Guy on the outside, much more banked. And they're running ARCA cars 3 wide around there because the track could do that. Right. And he wasn't lying. Like it was smooth. Now, the thing was it was middle of August, like 95 degrees out, and the pits are paved. because it's it's fairgrounds, right? And it's in the middle of town. And I'll show you all this. All right. We'll share this real quick. The Midwest. Scott says he'll volunteer his car for the video. There we go. Well, Scott, listen. All right. You know, we might have to see because Dan's not making a lot of money if we're tying that all up, right? The Midwest forgets about their passive part of their passive aggressive when it comes to driving. Dude, it's
definitely different.
It's unbelievable how different it was out there. All right, so let's do this. So put us in the corner. So Madera Speedway, this is the cool part that I think this is cool about Madera, right? This is the town of Madera, California. Okay. This is not a big town, right? Not comparatively, but like this is a big town, but Madera Speedway is in the middle of this thing. Like there's a Panda Express over here. Here's In-N-Out Burger, right? There's Madera Speedway. All of this out here that's covered in cars, that's the pits.
Oh, okay.
It's an asphalt parking lot. And so the problem is that when it's 105 degrees in August, asphalt's like 145 degrees. Now it's one that when the sun went down, track cooled down in that, you see how dark that track is compared to the parking lot. Oh, so it's one of like, that'll be the challenge is heat management, tire management. And it is, you use brakes there. So 100 laps, lap at the 50 lap break. But I'm going to go run this race. I'm going to go run this racetrack. It's so much fun, but third mile banked like that. But yeah, this is a flea market. Like it's set up every weekend. We had to clean up the next day. I drove by to go to the airport and flea market is set up and they are wall to wall. Every parking spot's filled with this flea market the next day.
It's crazy how many flea markets pop up out in California.
Yeah. Yeah, I
actually went to a couple of them when I was out there, and it's just it's exactly what it is. They're just in parking lots, whatever, and they just poof, there they are.
This was so down here. This is Fresno, which is where I flew in. This is about a 45-minute drive from Madera Speedway down here to Fresno, 30-minute drive or so. So that's kind of a reference point for everybody. Now, this is just what I want to point out is that you go over here, and then I think you got to go down. Yeah, you go down. And then you get into Los Angeles. And yeah, there's 10 million people, 13 million people like right in here.
Right.
And I went from down here in Anaheim, like this area, up over to here, and it took me 2.5 hours. So yeah, really cool stuff out there. But I a lot of people talk shit about California, straight up. I heard it a bunch. But I've yet to have a bad experience out there. As far as, I didn't go searching for Skid Row. Yeah. But Scott says, I'd pay. Just be nice to know where my car actually is or could be.
We can figure it out.
Scott, we'll start a group chat with the three of us, and I'm up for it if you're up for it. If you're willing to pay for a dyno session and Dan's willing to stretch that out so that we can film and we can go live and we can talk, I'm willing to drive over here and get the cameras out. So we could do a film to video or we could do a live video. We can figure that out, but we'll figure out the three of us, man. If you're up for it, we'll make it happen. So yeah. I'm definitely jealous of the walk across the parking lot to the shop. That's why I can't wait to get the pole barn done.
Yeah.
So
it's different though. I was production manager for a big company. For about 6 years before I opened this place.
I know what company.
And it was the drive to and from that I miss.
Yeah.
That honestly, I mean, because it was how you separated it. By the time I had my 25 minute drive home, I was done with work and I'm going home. And now work and home are kind of one.
Well, I've talked to a few people because like my brain, the way it works, I'm not a very good employee. And that's the nice thing. And I've talked to the wife, like I want to be the boss. I want to own the company. But like when she worked for Jackson, like that was the thing is like when she came home, man, you don't have to worry about it. Like you're home, right. And with having the business. And part of that is I'm sure you do have a couple customers that'll come knock on the door when they're not supposed to.
So it's happened 2 times
Yeah.
in the 8 years that I've been here.
Wow.
And neither one of them are customers anymore.
Well,
that is exactly how that works.
I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't customers about 10 seconds after they knocked.
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
If you come knock on my door on a Sunday,
yeah.
when I'm at home with my family,
yeah.
you and I will not be communicating anymore.
Charles wants to know if you can do a tune on a 94 probe 4-cylinder.
We just discussed that today.
We did.
Yep. And we cannot. I do not have any equipment or software to tune on any of the old probes.
Well, let's change that up slightly. Stock, no.
Correct.
If you're willing to, Chucky, if you're willing to do like a mega squirt or something, I'm sure Dan can help you figure out a solution.
Yes.
But yeah, they're just that vintage of Ford PCM. There just isn't really anything available to do it. So
94 wasn't even OBD2, so that would have been chip type stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just not set up to do any chips. Now,
not set up to.
Over at Wattec can still burn chips.
All right, so Chucky, you need to read out.
Whoa.
Okay, hold on. All right.
Chips for GM 60-degree V6.
All right, so never mind.
Yeah. But
trying to get in some business.
There's still some people doing it.
Oh yeah. Well, you still do the chip stuff. The Hondas have evolved where they don't have to keep burning, but you have to put a certain chip in so that you can run the Chrome and stuff like that. So
Honda and all that stuff.
Yeah. Chrome, Honda, Neptune, whatever. They have like 7 options and then complain. I like some of you Honda guys, but some of you bitch for having the world handed to you. Well, I'm going to get close on gear ratio. Then I have to buy a $500 ring and pinion. I'd buy a $500 ring and pinion.
I wish that we could, you see that right there?
Uh-huh.
That's the one on the left is the pinion.
Oh yeah, mine's the same way. Yeah. Yeah, that's we've got I got a guy that every time I bring up that we really only have 2 options. Well, you got custom stuff. Yeah, I've been quoted for custom stuff, and I'm not spending $3,500 to $4,500 on a transmission. As much as I would like to get that, I honestly run well enough that it's just I'd rather put $4,500 in the motor
or something else.
Yeah, a couple other things I'd spend that on. You can get some really custom stuff done to a couple things for $4,000. So, but yeah, like that's the big one is I love my Honda guys, but there's so many options for stuff that it's just we don't even have. We got some parts that you can't even buy, and they've got 4 or 5 companies that all make the same part. So, control arm bushings. I know there's at least 3 companies that make spherical control arm bushings for Hondas. There was going to be one company that you could purchase places for the neons, and then shit happened.
But even neons, you can buy plug and play mega squirt stuff for.
Yep.
You can buy camshafts off the shelf.
Yeah, they're not good, but yeah.
You can buy Weisco pistons.
Oh yeah, we can buy it. Yeah, we have it better than a lot of makes and models.
So all those things I just mentioned, I can't buy.
Yeah.
They don't make off the shelf parts for the 60-degree V6. Everything that is available that we use in our engines, Wide Open Throttle Technologies has.
So let me ask you, because the 3800, I know like the supercharged.
3800 is a 90-degree V6.
Okay.
I run 60-degree V6.
Okay. That's okay.
So the 3800 is a 400-pound engine.
Gotcha.
Because
that's where I was.
V6 is a 350-pound engine.
Gotcha. That's where my confusion was coming in then. Okay, because like ZZP, I know even just the GTP stuff, the supercharged stuff.
3800 stuff is easy. There's a lot of 3800 stuff.
Gotcha.
Around. You can buy 3800 parts.
Yeah.
But my experience,
so the 60-degree stuff is the newer 34, 35, 36, 100 series kind of stuff.
The 80s. 2.8, 3.1.
Okay. 3.4.
3.5, and now 3.9, the 3.6.
So the 3800 was all. Wasn't there a smaller version of the 3800 then?
There was
because
there's other 90-degree V6s.
Okay,
yes,
so
like
so is the 3 because like the 3.8 and the 3800 are not the same engine, but they're both 90-degree.
They're the same engine.
They're just different series, like Series 1, Series 2.
Yep.
Okay.
Same thing with the 3.4, the 3400, 3.5.
Gotcha. Yeah, Ben's the 3.0, 3.3, 3.8. Yeah, it's one where like that was. I knew a little bit about GTP stuff because I've had a couple buddies who have done. I had one buddy I went to college with that had a factory freak. He was running mid-low 13s, and it had a muffler and tires, like and just different size tires, running low 13s. And then he dumped a gob of money in that thing. Would annihilate the tires from a stop, but we never did have it right. So it was once you got past that, but yeah, so that clears up a lot of confusion that I had.
Because
then.
the 60-degree V6, which is what we run, we are the support.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense.
So camshafts are sitting right there on the shelf. Those are custom ground to our specs, and we're working on a couple of new cams now.
So let me ask you something, and you guys can peel back the curtain if you want to, right? Comp. Okay. Do they make these blanks for you, or are these available for them because they're in like a different series or something? Because like we're running into for us for the neon stuff, so Comp doesn't make dual cam stuff for us. Crane and Croward did. Crane decided we weren't worth the money. They discontinued. You cannot buy new Crane cams. Problem is Crane made the power. They had the good cams. Crowder you still can, and they'll like custom grind for you, but like it's hard to find the cores, and there just isn't quite enough money for it. And you guys have less support than us, so that's why I'm just curious.
So it's getting harder and harder. They keep jacking the price up on us,
right?
And the last thing that they told us was, well, you're going to have to prepay for a 50 core order.
Gotcha.
Well, that's a big bunch of money and a whole bunch of cams to put on the shelf.
Yeah.
For a small market.
Yeah.
For
25 guys.
Right. So, that's why we've got some new things in the works for cams.
Gotcha.
But yeah, these are all available on watttech.com. We've got some stuff in stock at this point. I don't know how much of the actual comp billet stuff we're going to keep carrying.
Gotcha.
Because we now have, we've come up with some billet blanks that we can have ground ourselves.
Okay.
So we're probably going to go a little bit on that route.
A big one for us that's options, and I've known a couple guys, is like Crowder will weld and regrind, or they'll reduce base circle. And the issue for me is, since I shattered that 22, I'd really like to get I need a 22 intake. And then, the neon guys, they hate us circle track guys, but the problem is that all the other guys, they'll hoard parts like crazy just so they say they have them. They won't use them. They won't do anything with them. So like they're all out there, but guys they got them on the shelf so they can say they have them. Right. So,
but like, the intake or the throttle body adapters, all stuff that Ben makes himself. ARP stud kits.
Yep.
Well, you can't buy an ARP stud kit off the shelf from ARP, but Ben has figured out, sourced the individual pieces and assembles them into an ARP head stud kit.
Ben, send me a friend request. You and I need to talk about fasteners.
And so that's kind of how all of this works. Is this is what he does. This is his passion. 60-degree V6s. And, I hooked up with him in 2015. At that time, most everybody at Kalamazoo were running V6s.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like doing anything out of the box.
Yeah, because that was, for people that don't understand, Kalamazoo, they didn't have a 4-cylinder class. They had their front wheel drives were V6s only. And then at the end of the year, we could intermingle. And then, because Kalamazoo was on an island with their V6 stuff. Yep. And they got, they changed to where they started letting 4-cylinder stuff in. Now V6s are a rarity.
Right.
Honestly, the fun thing for me is to see the ones that come out that used to be back in the day were zoo stocks, and they've made it back out. So
yeah, so I enjoy, even though it's a struggle and I get frustrated sometimes, I enjoy being the only V6 that shows up for the most part. When I can go to an NCTS race and last season won a heat race at Birch Run, and then went to Sandusky with completely the wrong gear. I had never been there. Looked at Google Earth to see the track and had no clue. So I thought, whatever, it's a half mile. I'm gonna take my Bristol gear. That was way wrong. So, my engine makes power at 6,500, and I go out on the track with 23-inch Falcons on it and turn the end of the straightaway. I'm hitting 52. And I'm like, okay, this is terrible. But the funny thing is I ran a 40 on Friday with the Falcons on it. And then I convinced Brock Sweeter to come here to my shop, pick up my 27-inch Hoosiers, haul them to Sandusky for me, and I ran second.
Nice.
Or I ran third, because I ran fourth at Bristol, third. I ran third. Then I was turning 72.50. And I'm like, okay, well, it feels better off the corner with this gear, so we're going to stick with it. And I set fast time.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating to not, to struggle with the turn and the things that we struggle with because of the V6, and then just the overall lack of availability.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's still enjoyable to go to a race that's predominantly 4 cylinders and a bunch of Hondas and a bunch of Cavaliers and a bunch of everything that aren't V6, and then go out and set fast time. It's rewarding from that standpoint, but sometimes it is frustrating.
I get that at some places, because there's been more than one race where I'm the neon.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a few of us, but it's you go to Bristol, and there was, I think, 3 of us.
Mm-hmm.
Me, Edelman, and I know it was the 2 of us. I think there was a third one. I apologize to whoever it was that I can't remember yet. But as you know, you go out and it's a sea of Hondas.
Mm-hmm.
VCTS is a significant amount of Hondas, and you've got the other ones peppered in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that same deal. We don't have the availability of parts, and it's making stuff work. And and we have some. Oh yeah, Doug was the other one. Doug was there. Was there a fourth one then? But it's one where it goes back to the ECU master thing. Where it's so much fun to be the only one to say that you're doing something nobody else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
God, does it suck sometimes to be the only one that's doing something and that's and in the neons, chassis wise, this is the Cavies. You guys have, you're on par with the neons for a lot of stuff.
I think so. I think the neon, there's a lot of similarities.
Oh yeah, they're real. Your solid axle is one thing. The rear. You gotta watch saying that too loud, depending on where you go.
I don't care. If I'm not legal, send my ass home. I don't care. I will always run Grand. My car is a Grand Am with a Cavalier roof on it, basically.
Yeah.
That's what my car is.
Well, that's we have the same basic front suspension layout. The K members are surprisingly similar.
Yep.
But the big one is your guys' sway bar is on the wrong side. Because I get the amount of people that are no, I tried it your way. Yeah. I love you, Dad.
I know.
Do you run sway bars now or no?
So I always have one in the car. It's not always hooked up.
Gotcha.
I do run it sometimes.
Tuning tool?
I do.
Gotcha.
I do run it sometimes. And towards the end of the year, I ran it a little more than I ever have. Probably will run it more once I get the new car done. But the biggest problem that I had was it was a great big heavy V6 in there and a stock Cavalier sway bar. So
makes sense.
It was negligible how much it actually made a difference. It was like almost unfeelable.
Yeah.
And I ran out,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm hitting the axle on one side and I'm hitting the control arm on the other.
Yeah.
So I do have a bigger sway bar in it this year, and I'll probably use it a little bit more.
Yeah. If you go too big, you'll get accused of stuff.
It's actually stock Grand Am.
Why I'm saying it.
I figured out that the Grand Am is exactly the same shape as the Cavalier.
Oh, nice.
And it's the same center to center bow hole.
Nice.
And it's actually the same diameter, and they're both solid. The only difference is between the mounts on the Grand Am, it's a larger diameter. So it's stepped down for the rest of the way out.
Huh.
I don't know. I may or may not use it. Don't know.
Maybe I'll set you up with a neon one. You can see how close it'd be if it fit.
I think you sent me a bunch of measurements and we were like, nah.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I've sent measurements to 2 or 3 different people that have something that isn't a neon.
I think we did that and it wasn't gonna work.
Yeah. That's the fun thing of doing stuff nobody else is doing. So the real fun one though is like you set fast time or you lead half a lap. And then everybody that comes out of the woodwork that it blows their mind because there's no way that you could make, a 60-degree V6 or a neon do that without you're cheating. So now we can see this is a whole reason to rewrite the whole rule book.
$20,000 engine.
So many a year ago at Kalamazoo, and I hand to God, I do not know who it was that was talking to me. The first Call of the Wild we came to. Okay. So this was like the first time we came with our front wheel drive 4-cylinders, right? Mm-hmm. And this would have been 08. Yeah, it'd have been 08 because we were single cam automatics. Single cam automatics because that's what Spartan's rules were. Spartan and Springport, no dual cam, no stick shift. So it'd been 08 or 09. Because it'd been 09 because I had my car, Dad had his car. Darren and then Misty. So the 4 of us show up, 4-cylinder front wheel drives. We were like the only 4-cylinders. It was all V6s because that's what the class was. Sideboard race. Yep. Everybody ran together, right?
Oh, that's right.
So we didn't split yet because we ran mini shoe in 10. We ran front wheel drive call in 11. Because I ran Call of the Wild all together. I broke the right rear off in 10 and then won the mini shoe, and then 11. We ran 2 separate. So, but we show up and a lot of these 6 guys were laughing at us, because we're these little puny 4-cylinders. And our slowest was like a second and a half, 2 seconds faster than the fastest V6. Now, in the V6 guys' defense, I'm not talking shit on them for that because the rules of Kazoo, the infancy of that, we'd already been running these cars a couple years. We were lighter. Mm-hmm. Allowed more suspension, right? We had better cars. We're all on Hoosiers and sideboards and shit like that, right? But I actually had a sprint car wing. It was the first year I ever ran one. I ran a sprint car wing. One and only time I ever ran one. So one and only time I ever ran one. But come out and we're parked.
Did your dad run it once?
Dad's ran a small front wing up in like the back window a few times. I ran the full blown sprint car wing. Okay. So we come up and we're just hanging around talking to people, and somebody, I don't know if he was a driver, I don't know if he was crew, but he was with one of the front wheel drive guys, one of the V6 guys. And I'm dead serious. Like I truly do not know who this was. So we're standing there and the guy's like, the fast guy is 79 over there. Like I'm pretty much the reason that car's fast. And I'm like, oh yeah?
I think he told me.
Yeah, he's like, I did all the setup work on it. I'm like, really? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, dude, he's got $5,000 in the suspension and $10,000 in the motor. And I'm like, really? Oh yeah. And I'm like, well, what's he got in the suspension? Oh, dude, he's got all this custom shocks and like he's got double this and like he starts listing off this all stuff. I was like, well, what's he got in the motor? Oh, it's a built 2.4 and it's got this and this and this. And I'm letting him rattle off, and I'm like, cool. Who the hell are you? And they're like, look at me. I'm like, because that's my car. And whoever we were standing with was one of the Kazoo guys who actually knew me And we both just like let him talk. Like, really? You're the reason, huh? I'd never met this dude a day in my life. And I was like,
and still to this day don't know who he is.
Still to this day don't know who it was. And it was one where I was like, I'll sell that car right now for $5,000. Like, if you think it's got a $10,000 motor in it.
Yep.
Now, I was cheating. Straight up, I admitted it. 09, I was cheating. I had a big single cam. It had a Magnum head, no port work, but I had a Magnum head, crane cam. I forget what crane cam, decent size cam. Shaved 60 thou off the head, dual cam pistons, ran the Magnum header, which you weren't supposed to do. I ran the heat shields. Like 3 people got caught. We're all in tech at the same time, and they got caught because they didn't have the heat shields, and I did. If you look hard enough, you could see it had tubes, but I had the heat shields, right? The auto throttle body, which was bigger, but it was 52, which is stock versus 49, right? And in a Mopar PCM, still automatic tranny, but we had the lockup converter. We had the valve body modified. You could lock it up. So I had a big single cam, like what Hollister's got now to walk it, hands down. His single cam's way fucking bigger, right? My stock dual cam walked it, but it was big. It's like, oh, I got 10 grand in the hood, huh? Like, and that dude turned white as a ghost and just walked away. But that was how quick we were compared to the V6 guys. Is this dude's over here telling people I got 15 grand in this car. And I honestly, at the time, I was like, what could I even spend $5,000 on the suspension? Like, what could I do? Like, I don't even know what I could. This is all the way back in 08. Like, now we could get some stuff machined and we could probably do it. But Mr. Ben Ferris, speaking of, says hello, late to the party. What time is it there, Ben? I can never remember. Ben is 11 hours different. I can't remember if I think he's 11 hours ahead. So like it'd be like 11 in the morning over there right now. So I think
he's probably about to tell us.
Oh, I'm sure. Hopefully. So 11:56 a.m. Oh, so he's 12 hours. Oh, because you're on the other side now though, right, Ben? Because he moved.
Oh.
Because they were up in one town out in the bush, and he moved to a different town. And I think because Australia's fucking big, so I think he's in a different time zone in the West Coast. Yeah, so that's why he was 11 hours because he was kind of in the middle. Now he's on the coast, so he's 12. All right, same time zone though. All right. Well, then he's always been 12 hours, and I was fucked up.
So probably daylight savings.
It's daylight savings. Yeah, it's always that daylight savings. And that honestly might have been it. Was that, Ben, do you guys do daylight savings time? Yeah, daylight savings time or something. I cannot wait for Ben to hang out. So we're gonna put him up in some 5-star accommodations. Wife and I bought a camper last fall, so that's gonna be in the driveway, so Ben can hang out. So
I thought you were putting an air mattress in the van.
Hey, I have 2 of them now. He can choose windows or no windows. We're gonna have to move some neon parts though, because it's being used as a storage unit right now for all the neon stuff I had to get out. So Ben says, hey Dan. So we're gonna try, Ben, to come over and see Dan when you're here. I think it'd be neat to come over. I don't think Scott's gonna want to wait till July to do the dyno thing. No, they only do burning koala savings. Do you know that there are more camels in Australia than there is Saudi Arabia?
I did not.
Yeah. And apparently, because somebody brought camels to Australia. Okay. And then they just kind of got out and they started fucking, right? So now there's a lot of them, right? But the thing is that in like the Middle East and Saudi Arabia and stuff, they've been crossbreeding. And so like they've kind of been crossing with like horses or some other, so they're not as pure as camels. So the camels in Australia are more pure camels than like Saudi Arabian stuff. So they legitimately they're like wild boars almost. So there are people and companies who are hunting and getting big, large groups of camels and either shipping them live to the Middle East or taking their meat and shipping it over to like Saudi Arabia and stuff because it's better quality and better camels. I had no idea that was a thing until Ben's like, oh yeah, no, we got camels like crazy. And I'm like, fucking Australia, you got kangaroos and dingoes and stuff. Like I get that, but like camels? Yeah, he was telling me all about it. So I was like, that's neat as shit. So yeah.
I would have never thought that.
Because the thing most people don't realize about Australia is like 90% of the population lives within 20 miles of the coast. And Australia is massive. Like it's massive, right? But they all live around the edge. Yeah. So, and only like a little bit of the edge. Yeah. So, gotta watch out for those emus though. Those bastards are dangerous. Beat us in the war. There is that. As an American, we never lost a war to a flightless bird. There is that, Ben says he's got some cool gifts this time. Can't wait to show us. Dude, I can't wait to see it either. So he has some really neat stickers made last year. It was Freedom Tour, the Freedom Tour, and it was the Australia American flag and that, and Freedom Tour 2023 and all that. We only gave away like 10 of them because
didn't go anywhere.
It rained the whole time, So yeah, we went go-karting. So we actually, Ben and I had a ton of fun at the go-kart place. We were talking to them. And
I don't know how you can go to the go-kart place and not have a ton of fun. Especially
because I get motion sick and I'm fat and so I'm slow. I can run the exact same line. And, Mike, my buddy Mike's always, he kicks the shit out of me in go-karts, right? But he, like, the whole, that's not it. And I'm like, brother, I weigh 100 pounds more than you do. Like, you cannot argue physics that 100 pounds more on a 400 pound, right? But the electric ones, they can adjust the acceleration rate. So the acceleration rate is always the same. Yeah. So like weight or no weight, right? Well, Ben and I, we get talking to him. And of course, Ben sounds as Australian as you can sound, right?
Wonder why.
He can fake it till he makes it, right? Yeah, for all I know, this dude actually just lives in Canada and he just come over for the weekend. I've never seen his place,
He might
sent me pictures.
Creek, how do you know?
Y'all don't realize that dude lives in Ohio, he just but yeah, like Ben and I, we got talking to him and they turned him up, like they maxed him out for us. And so Ben was like third on the month list, like third highest on the month. I was like sixth. So like only time I've ever been top 10 on like the, and it was towards the end of the month. Like we stayed there. Like we finished the month on the leaderboard. The fun part for me was that, and we were like the only ones out there for like the one session, and the other one we only had like 2 other people. Like it worked out. We went on like a Wednesday. But I was beating him. And then he's following me the whole time, sees what I'm running, runs my line, picks up and gets me by like a 10th or 2. I'm like, you son of a bitch. So, but because he watched how I ran it, he got faster. So yeah. It was one of the most fun times I've had in a go-kart. But like, I've been go-karting before where like, I'm literally like, all right, guys, I'll see you later. Like, like we went over to Clio one time for Extreme. And Mike's like, dude, you can take that corner flat out. And I'm like, all right. Well, Mike's go-kart had new front tires. Mine had a corded right front. I hooked left and didn't lift. And I went straight into the barrier. I'm like, Mike, you can't hold it wide open. Pete, I was mid-pack. Pete says, we all saw you on a slick track at SEMA, which no, you didn't. That was PRI. I'm not a dirt guy, so I wasn't used to flicking it in and then walking it with the rear end, a rear-wheel drive dirt guy. So I did okay. I had a ton of fun. That was a blast. But like, if I'd have went back out in another session, I'd have done better. The fun part was I followed the what no way guy. Like, if you're not telling what no way, straight up stood there, talked to him. He went out before me, and then I came in and they let him go out one more time. Dude was like 2 seconds faster. He'd have been like top 3. They didn't take his name off mine. So like I went up there and then they corrected it and took the laps off. But yeah, I got to follow the what? No way. So
over in South Haven when I was younger, much younger, 20 years old, probably 21, there's a go-kart track over there that's, but they have sprinklers in the corners.
Yeah.
For doing wet track. And we ran a series there. After hours, 10 carts, sprinklers on, wet track, That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun doing that.
I'm really sad the place no longer exists. Shepherd Speedway was over in Owasso, and they had these big honking carts. They were protected. They were protected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what he would do is he'd go out. They waxed the corners, and they'd go out. And if you were getting too racy, they'd walk out with a big ass cup of baby powder and just woof right in the corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd go in, you're drifting these things out. They had no power. My favorite time I've ever had over there, we went over, Kyle Trinkline, Flipper?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was his bachelor party. So we go over there, and there's a big group of us, and there's maybe 10, 12 guys. There's only 2 of them that weren't race car drivers in some capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first heat goes out, things get a little rough. Second heat goes out with me and my brother-in-law, John Culp. Let's just say we got a talking to afterwards. Like you weren't trying to make the corner. You were trying to stop the guy in front of you from making the corner, right? It was fun. So they get together, and Kyle and Miss Shepherd that ran the place are standing up and they're talking to us. They're like, look, instead of running like these smaller races, what we're going to do is we're going to put everybody out, and you're going to run one like 50-minute race. Like, you guys are going to race the shit out of these things. Mm-hmm. But if you guys start beating on each other, we're going to stop you, and you're going to get 2 7-minute features. We're going to split you in half. You're going to get 2 7-minute features, right? Everybody got that? You got that? You got that? And Flipper goes, John, did you hear that? And he goes, yeah, we're going to run 2 7-minute features. And of course, like, I know John, like, dude, the fact that that's what your brain got from that, like, that's amazing. Flipper's dying laughing, and the guy next to him, you can see his face like, that's not the point of what I just said. Like, no, I don't want to do that, And I think we went 35 minutes without a caution. Like, we were racing. I was holding on third. I was so happy. The cart I had wasn't quite up to spec. And then I got moved and went all the way from downhill from there. But that was a lot of fun too. But it just wasn't profitable enough. He closed up, and I actually just seen a listing for the property, and you would never know that thing was inside of there because it was actually like banked. Like, they had built it up and it was banked and all this, and it's just a flat open warehouse now. So, but yeah, those carts beat the head out of each other. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, so. I'll try to do a Freedom Tour 2.0 sticker made up for the street. Dude, Ben, I'm excited for you to come. I got some plans. We're trying to do stuff. So if you're watching this at midnight and July 3rd through July 7th, well, like July 4th through like the 15th, 16th, because he flies in, flies out, Mr. Ben will be here from Australia. So if you got something in a drivable distance from Southern Michigan that you think an Australian should partake in, let me know. So we're trying. Earl and I have this thing that we like to do, and I know some people might find this goofy. We like to go watch midget wrestling. Okay.
We've had this conversation too.
And we found, y'all might not realize this, but in American Legion, fun, not that great. Gentlemen's Club, significantly better environment. Oh, the show is better all the way around. Okay. I'm trying to find that environment with midget wrestling to take Ben to. So, and I'm like, what's more American than watching midget wrestling in a strip club?
Good luck finding that.
I can't think of much more. It just screams America, that and cannons and pew-pews. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to Ben coming over and hanging out. I think it's going to be a blast. We're actually getting him on track because that's 2 weekends. So the weekend of the 6th and the weekend of the 12th. Got to end up with 13th. A race
that happens somewhere.
I would really think, especially since we could be racing, I think the 4th, 5th, 6th, maybe the 7th, and then into the next week, we've got Friday, Saturday again. Yep. So, I mean, we realistically have 5-6 nights that should have racing. Usually by the time July rolls around here in Michigan, we don't get rain that much around that time period. So I'm really looking.
It's about the time we start getting brown yards.
Yeah. So we just got to watch out for with cannons and, stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'm so looking forward to it. So, but all right. I love y'all. And the 14, 15 of you still watching, You're the OGs. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
it's been a good time.
Yeah, we can. I can sit and talk to you for a whole bunch more time, but I do have an hour and some odd drive home. So
I have at least a 3-minute walk. So
you gonna stumble?
Maybe.
You don't walk that slow. I'm excited for the pole barn to get done so that I have that walk. But we'll get there. So I got to get something done so that when Ben gets here, we can all hang out in the pole barn, have ourselves a little shindig out there. So
you might want to get a car around that is raceable too.
Yeah. Luckily, the car where Doc is, I can work on it down to my brother-in-law. So once I got to grab the transmission for it from Earl, and then I got a company that's supposed to be hooking me up with a clutch that I need to reach out to that are going to hook me up. But I've got shifter cables, already has a clutch pedal in it. I have a clutch cable. I should have a set of axles. So in all seriousness, it should be easy.
That's all I can say is you better get a wiggle on it, because as fast as you do things, it's already made, dude.
Once I start, it gets done. It's that period before the start.
Yeah, I know.
So in all seriousness, I should be able to have it swapped in a Saturday. It's just I got to get down there on a Saturday. Well, technically I can do it any day of the week right this minute. I just got to get down there. I can do it in a day. So, but I got to get the parts. I got to reach out to him about the clutch is the big one.
Yep.
Trying to put it decent. It's not like a lightweight one or anything. It's just nice. So, but anyways, guys and gals, thank you for being here. Off Route 43 in Pawpaw. M43 in Pawpaw. You guys can see, got a wall of parts behind us. Chassis dyno, most likely what you're going to use. If you want to do some engine dyno stuff, get a hold of Dan. You got to work with it, but, capabilities there. If you're doing some 60-degree V6 stuff, look, we got it. I'm telling you, I'm staring at parts over here, okay? He's got some stuff of mine in stock. Berlin, Saturday, headed over there. If you guys want to see light Seaver mount, if you want to see any of that kind of stuff, hit up Dan. He's going to have it there. I threw all my stuff in his tote too, but he's got all that over there. Go see it. He's going to have some of the legacy parts from the front wheel drive shop. Yeah. So going to have room for the 44-foot trailer. Pete, if you need a place to park that, especially if there's a car in it for Ben, I got you. I guarantee you we can find a spot for it. So I do have a pretty big driveway. I just got to put some stuff in the yard to fit the trailer that big. So it'll fit.
Too many vans.
Yeah. I got 2 vans. I got car trailer, power wash trailer, camper trailer, a Neon, the wife's minivan. We got some stuff in there. But I can rearrange it. I made the driveway so it goes behind my pole barn, and yeah, we can fit it. I just
might have to just drop something off at Culp's for a couple of days.
That's the other thing. He's got space, so he might get mad at me, but I'll swap something out. I'll take Doc and I'll put something else there.
There you go.
So yeah, and I got to get Dad's car back around too. So now that Scott's got his car out, hopefully we can get some space in there. So, but yeah, if you guys need some parts, get a hold of Dan. 60-degree stuff. Get on chassis dyno. He can get you tuned up, fixed up. Tow rig needs brakes. Come hit him up. So, anything else you want to say?
Nope, we're good.
All right.
Have a good time. Thanks for everybody being here.
Yeah. Next time we'll try to go live actually closer to 7 instead of 9.
And maybe be done before midnight.
Maybe. Even if we start at 7, we could still go to it. I talked to Paul Clayton for 5 hours one night. I was sitting in the camper in a rock hard stool. That sucked.
You do know you got here at 6, right?
Yeah, I do. That's what I said. I was here. I was here. Yeah. Well, on camera, 3.
Yeah.
2 hours and 58 minutes. So, but I'm allowed to race anytime I want per the doc. Yeah. You can race once. I bet you don't climb back in the car the rest of the season. I'm not going to talk about it on air. I'll tell Dan a story afterwards. All right. He's back. Who's back? Dad? No. He can talk all he wants. I've watched him. That shoulder. If he climbs in a car, yeah. Anyways, I love y'all. Thanks for being here. We'll see you guys soon.
Have a good night.